Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another live stream watch along on the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. It is the first ODI of three between India and Australia. The first one being here from the Wankhede Stadium, which is in Mumbai. And it's been a very good start from Australia, batting first after India won the toss and batted and decided to bowl first today. It's been a good start from Australia. They lost a few wickets. Mitchell Marsh was going a bit berserk there. He made a good 80 odd, but he has departed, and it is Inglis and Cameron Green at the crease. Marnus Labuschagne just got out, and Australia 4 down for 140. They'll be hoping to get back on track after the loss of a few wickets, and they'll be hoping to bounce back. But this is a change of pace from over the last few weeks from the Test series as we get into the one-dayers and preparation for the T20 World Cup, 50-over World Cup, which will be on later on this year in India. And both teams will be hoping to try different combinations, give players a go, and that's what Australia have done today. So it's an opportunity for some players to really kickstart their one-day career and hopefully kickstart their World Cup ambitions later on this year as well. So it is quite an interesting situation for both teams going into that World Cup. What's their best squad that they can put out on the park? But thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll be here for a little while for the first innings. It's nearly halfway through first innings at the moment. So we'll be here for a little bit of the first innings. And Australia have started well, but lost a few early wickets in this passage of play. As Jadeja will finish up his over, so 2 balls left. And Australia 4 for 143 at the moment. Hello, John. Thanks for joining us. You say, what do you think about 280? Well, it's a pretty high-scoring ground, the Wankhede. So I think Australia, anything 300 plus will be good. They are a bit light on their bowling, Australia. They've gone in with some all-rounders today to their balance of their side. So I think, with the lack of bowling there and relying on all-rounders like Stoinis, Maxwell, Green to bowl a few overs, then I think probably 300 is certainly what they have in mind, as that will be their sort of thinking with their total. They're 4 for 147, Australia, nearly halfway through the innings. 24 overs have been completed, and it's been an interesting start by the Australians. Mitchell Marsh was good. He got off to a good start, got off to a bit of a flyer, mostly dealt in boundaries and 4s and 6s, as he had to depart. And really for Australia, if Mitchell Marsh stayed in for a little while longer, then they would have been over probably 200 by now. But anyway, he got out, and now it's time for Inglis and Green. Good opportunity for them to really get a good partnership here and hopefully put their name for selection ahead of that T20 World Cup, that 50-over World Cup, which will be later on this year in India, of course. And they'll be hoping to put their names down in that squad. So an opportunity for them. Australia have lost a few wickets, and a partnership required here. After the good start by Australia, India won the toss, and they chose to bowl first. Just a recap. And the teams, of course, we'll start with Australia's team. And Travis Head, Mitchell Marsh opening the batting because David Warner is still injured. Apparently picked up another injury in the nets before this first game. So Mitchell Marsh opening for the first time in one-days. Then you have Smith, Labuschagne, Inglis keeping wicket today, who had a pretty good Marsh One Day Cup final for Western Australia. He scored over 150 plus. and Western Australia won that one-day tournament recently. And then you have Green, his WA teammate. And then you have Maxwell returning from that leg injury. And then you have Stoinis, and you have Abbott, Stark, and Zampa, which is not a bad team for Australia. A few different faces there. And with India, you have Kishan and Gill, and then you have Curley, and then you have Suryakumar Yadav. KL Rahul's keeping wickets. Hardik Pandya, the captain. No Rohit Sharma, he's been rested. And then you have Jadeja, Thakur, Kuldeep Yadav, Siraj, and Shami. That's not a bad Indian side there. And that's their. Those are the teams for the first game of this series. A 3-game series, this one. So it's a short, sharp series. Really, it doesn't really affect both teams' prospects for the World Cup in terms of qualification. Both teams have qualified already. And obviously, India being the host nation, qualify automatically. But Australia have already qualified as well. So really nothing to worry about there on that front. But it's pretty much, working out different combinations, trying different players out, see, what sort of players we want to think about going forward into the World Cup, which is later on this year in India. And where they're playing today, the Wankhede Stadium, is where that 2011 World Cup final was held. And that's where India won the World Cup after a long drought, after they won in 1983. So India will be hoping to repeat a World Cup victory again this time around, later on this year. They could do that. They're capable, but a lot of pressure on them. They haven't won an ICC event, not since the Champions Trophy, which was in 2013. And that was in England, when they defeated England in the final at Edgbaston in a rain-effective match. Australia 4 for 151, halfway through their innings. We've got 25 overs remaining of the Australian first innings. And they were off to a good start, then lost a few wickets. Mitchell Marsh was going well, and then he got out for 80-odd. So it slowed Australia a little bit down here with the wickets, but they'll be hoping to get a partnership here and hopefully kick on and finish off strongly. That will be the plan. As Jadeja's in. He's into Inglis, and Inglis defends on the back foot, back down the pitch for no run. Jadeja got a wicket, but that's been expensive as well in his allotted overs thus far. And Josh Inglis, as I mentioned before, had a pretty good Marsh One Day Cup final for WA, scored a very impressive century, which helped WA went on to win against South Australia in that final. This one defended again by Inglis for no run. Run rate's pretty good for Australia, just a tick under 6, 5.92. And they'll be hoping to up that as the innings progresses, as we get further and further into the innings and towards the end of the innings as well. Jadeja had a pretty good test series recently. He's in now to Inglis, who drives back down the ground to long on. He'll pick up a single. He moves on to 12. Cameron Green on strike. He's on 6. It's 4 for 152. And it's been a very interesting match, you'll have to say. A lot of runs have been scored. India managing to get some wickets and claw things back a little bit. As Jadeja's into Green. Green pushes this down to wide long off for a single. Cameron Green had a pretty good last test match. Got that century in Ahmedabad. Maiden test century for Green. Hopefully many more. And Jadeja in again, this time to Inglis, who works it through point. And the fielder at deep point will cut it off for 2. Nicely played by Inglis. A couple of runs to finish at the end of the over. It's 4 for 153. 4 for 153 for Australia after 26 overs. But thanks for joining us, everyone. I hope everyone is enjoying some one-day cricket. A bit of a change in pace for both teams after a very long test series. And they'll be hoping to have a pretty good ODI series as well. So Australia looking to get back on track after a very fast start. They lost a few wickets and trying to rebuild after that, which is very important to do, especially one-day cricket. Gives you that time to rebuild and get back on track. And they'll be hoping they can do that. But 4 for 155 at the end of 26 overs. It was a very good start from the Australian team at the start. But those loss of wickets. Kuldeep Yadav into green, flashes at this one outside off stump, just wide of first slip. He'll trickle down to third man for a single. A bit risky there from Green. And good bowling from Kuldeep Yadav, tossing that up above the eye lines, the leg spinner. Got the outside edge of Green. It was a chance at slip that was put down by the slip fielder. Yadav into Inglis, who sweeps outside off stump, down to fine leg. And the fielder will come around and cut it off for 2. I believe that was Subakumar Yadav. He's done the fielding there, cuts it off for 2. John, you say rule of thumb is you double score after 25 overs, so 300 is possible if we don't lose too many wickets. Hope the big show fires. Yes, Glenn Maxwell, well, he hasn't been playing for Australia for a while since that leg injury. But good to see him back. He's definitely going to be important for Australia in this series, but also the World Cup later on in the year as well. Dot ball from Kuldeep Yadav. And as I mentioned before, Josh Inglis had a pretty good Marsh One-Day Cup final for WA. He scored a big century, so he's in good touch. And I should know, I was watching that final. It was against South Australia. And being from South Australia, it was pretty hard to watch that final. But nonetheless, very happy that South Australia made it to the final. Unfortunately, could not get the job done. WA just too strong at the moment. Reverse sweep from Inglis. Works it out to the fielder at deep point. Picks up 1. Green on strike to Inglis. He's on 8, Cameron Green. So Kuldeep Yadav in now to Green. Green defends on the front foot for no run. Last ball, the 27th over. And a change of pace, as I mentioned before, from the one-day series from the test cricket to the one-day series. Both teams preparing for the World Cup later on in the year. So last ball, the over from Kuldeep Yadav. He's in now to Green. Green backs away, gives himself room to work this ball through the covers on the offside. He'll pick up an easy 2. And that's good running. It's the end of the over. It's 4 for 161. After 26 overs. After 27 overs of the innings thus far. So we're nearly towards the 30th over mark. Then Australia will be looking to see what they can do there. John says, when was the last time Maxwell played? Well, I think it was the T20 World Cup, John. Yes. Yeah, T20 World Cup time. Yeah, that was the last time he played. Then he picked up the injury and didn't play in the BBL. So it's T20 World Cup was the last time he played, I think. Glenn Maxwell, so he'll be chomping at the bit to make a contribution today, if required, with the bat and possibly with the ball, because Australia do need to rely on their all-rounders and Stoinis, Green and Maxwell to bowl a few overs today. Obviously, no Pat Cummins in the side, obviously, for obvious reasons, and we send our thoughts and prayers to Pat at this time and wish him well and his family during this difficult period for them. And Steve Smith, captain of the one-day side for the series of India. And he batted well today. Smith only made 22 and then got out of 30 balls. But it was Mitchell Marsh who got 81. He was definitely up and about early, Mitchell Marsh, dealing with a lot of boundaries, 4s and 6s. Mohammad Shami into the attack. This one, outside off stump. Inglis flashes at this one. Playing a miss, and there's no run. Josh Inglis looking to get on and score some runs aggressively here. That one just outside off stump, flashing at that one. Trying to carve that through the offside. And unfortunately for India, didn't quite get the outside edge, but nearly. And Josh Inglis, if it's in his area, he'll definitely go for it, have a bit of a swing. Shami in now to Inglis. Inglis drives uppishly. Got a bit of an outside edge. It trickles out to deep point. Good fielding there on the rope by the fielder. And they'll pick up 2. Didn't quite time that, Inglis. But he moves on to 20 of 24. Just having a check to see if the fielder touched the rope here. Don't think he did. I think it was a good job. Yes. Well, probably his left arm probably touched the rope as he knocked the ball back into the field of play. So it could be a boundary here. Third umpire checking this. Yeah, so probably just that arm there, that left arm touching that rope as he touched the ball with his right hand. And I think that will be a boundary. And that will be a boundary for Australia there and for Inglis. So I think that's 4. It's just wondering if that ball was released before he touched the rope. So the third umpire just checking that over a few times on the replay, rock and roll it, as they say. We did very well to get around there and cut it off there, Suryakumar Yadav. It's just that left arm there touching the rope as he makes contact with the ball with his right hand. Third umpire checking this quite a few times, just making sure. Want to be certain in these situations because every run does count, especially in one-day cricket. You know, you don't really want to decide the game by a few runs. So just checking to see if this has touched the rope. From that replay, what I'm looking there, probably he has touched the rope as he touched the ball as well. It's touch and go. So still checking that. Maybe give benefit of doubt to the fielder. Did a pretty good job there, Suryakumar Yadav. So I think that's what's happened. So 2 runs has been scored. So benefit of the doubt to the fielder in that situation. As John says, a coat of paint in that one. Yeah, it was real close. But anyway, 2 runs onto the score. Australia 4 for 163. Inglis is on 20. Cameron Green on 10, adding a good partnership after Australia lost a couple of wickets in the last few overs. And Marnus Labuschagne was the last wicket to fall. Run rate's pretty good, 5.96. It's not bad. Just a tick under a run a ball. So for Australia, predicted score, if they're at this current run rate, 298 will be the score. I think anything over 300 will be good for Australia. As this one's short from Shami. Inglis pulls this away to deep backward square leg for 6 over the rope. He hooked that away nicely. Shami just a little bit short. And Inglis, being from the west in Western Australia with the bounce, he's a pretty good puller and hooker of the ball. And he hooked that nicely. He pulled that nicely, in fact. Over deep backward square leg, over the rope for 6. And Mohammad Shami not happy with that delivery. Cost him 6 runs. Anyway, Shami in again to Inglis. This one outside off stump, outside edge and gone. Yes, there's an appeal. The umpire says not out. India are saying, well, he's probably hit that. Well, they've reviewed it straight away, India. I believe they have reviewed it. For a moment there, India thought that was straightforward, but the umpire did not raise his finger. Going upstairs. Well, there was a deflection. It's just a matter of time whether or not Inglis hit it or not. Let's have a look. This one outside off stump from Shami, as always. Inglis flashing at this one. He's probably missed that. Ball is close to the bat, but the deviation off the pitch is what made the Indian fielders excited, especially when you see the ball deviate past the bat. You're pretty confident that he's probably hit it. But nothing on the ultra edge, so it's a flat line. Good decision by the umpire. You could easily get sucked into that situation with the ball deviating off the pitch and especially past the bat. You can be convinced that he did hit it, but the umpire was certain he didn't hear a noise, and he was correct. So good decision in the first place by the umpire. Yeah, it did move off the pitch a little bit. It did swing and deviate after it pitched, especially when it went past the bat. So that's why India were excited. They thought there was a noise there, but it wasn't. Shami in to Inglis, and he's gone. He's chopped it on. Well, he was given not out on the previous ball for a caught behind decision, Inglis. Next ball, Shami gets his revenge. Inglis chops it on, and he is gone. It's 5 for 169 for Australia. India coming back nicely after Australia started well. And they were off to a good start, Australia, early on, but India have done well to pick up the wickets here. Inglis trying to work that ball through the offside, and unfortunately got an inside edge, and it chopped onto the stumps. And Inglis walking off, looking at his inside edge, and probably saying, I shouldn't have played that shot. Should have played a different shot. Anyway, he's gone for 26, Inglis. It was an opportunity for him to really cash in on his good form, because he made a very good 100 for WA in the Marsh One Day Cup final recently. Unfortunately, wasn't able to convert that form into this series in India. And that brings Glenn Maxwell out to the middle. One ball left of the 28th over. And first match for Glenn Maxwell. Hasn't played since the World Cup, T20 World Cup that time. He's been out for a while with injury, with that leg injury that he's recovered from. So it's good to see him back. He's out there with Cameron Green. Partnership required for Australia. There's still plenty of time to go in this innings. Last ball, the 28th over, so we've got almost 20-plus overs remaining. And very important for Australia to bat out the 50 overs, get to a good score. They would have liked to have Mitchell Marsh in at this time, but unfortunately, that hasn't been the case. He got out looking just to slog at everything, Mitchell Marsh. But I think if he just knocked it around in the gaps, it would have been good for him just to do that and then cash in on the loose ball when required. Well, Glenn Maxwell, he's played over 120-odd matches for Australia on one-day cricket. And he makes his way out to the middle to join Cameron Green. He's on strike to Shami. Last ball, the 28th over. Shami in to Maxwell. This one past his outside edge. And a good finish from Shami. Dot ball to finish. Playing a miss from Maxwell. It's the end of the over. And it's 5 for 169. 5 for 169 for Australia. 28 overs are done. Still in the second power play. And 4 fielders are allowed outside the 30-yard circle in the second power play. It's going to be Jadeja come back into the attack. And Australia got some starts. Mitchell Marsh, top scorer with 81, and then Smith Labuschagne had some starts, same with Inglis, and then got out. Hopefully Cameron Green and Glenn Maxwell can get a bit of a partnership here and get Australia back on track. Just lost their way a little bit. Dr. Jihan, thanks for joining us. You say mini collapse from Australia today. Well, really, I think at the end of the day, I think what both teams are trying to achieve in this series, it's pretty much preparation for the T20 World Cup. So if you ask many people, would you really care if Australia win this series or not? I think many people would say, well, it would be nice if they do win the series, but at the same time, it doesn't really matter if they don't, because the series doesn't really equate to anything in terms of World Cup qualification, etc., because Australia and India have already qualified, obviously. So really, this series is just about trying different players and preparing and, all that stuff. So, yeah, it was a good start. And then they've lost a few wickets. Mitchell Marsh shouldn't have got out when he did. He was really going. But Inglis, Labuschagne and Smith all had starts but couldn't convert them. And that's the thing with Australia is that once you get those starts, you really got to go on and do that. Yes, there has been a bit of movement off the pitch, got a bit of grass on it, but it's still a pretty good batting surface. And if you apply yourself, then you can score runs as Maxwell works it on to the offside through the covers for a couple. He's off the mark. So first runs for Glenn Maxwell in this innings and in this series. John says, yep, another loss of wickets is concerning, as always. Yeah, it is. It's never nice when you lose wickets at regular intervals. You always want to have wickets in hand as Jadesia's into Maxwell, works it on to the leg side for a single. He moves on to 3, Maxwell. Very productive early on in his innings. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We'll be here for a little while. Maybe for an hour, maybe half an hour, as we talk about this first ODI between India and Australia. Marcus Stoinis in next, and he'll be hoping to make a good contribution. Jadeja into green, this one a play and a miss. Good take from the keeper. Bit of excitement there. But Cameron Green's safe. He didn't hit the ball. Let's have a look in the replay. Yeah, that one just going straight on. Cameron Green looking to cut. Probably too close to cut there. Jadeja into Green. Green works it out to deep point. He'll pick up a single. That's the end of the over. It's 5 for 174 after 29 overs. So we're nearly approaching the 30th over mark of this first innings. People who are joining us, interested to hear your thoughts. There's been a lot of talk about one cricket of late, the future of it. Many people not really optimistic about one-day cricket going forward. So it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts about one-day cricket. Do you think it's here to stay? Do you think its relevance is not what it was when it first came in? Or do you think it still has a future, but we can definitely improve it? Those will be the questions that a lot of people have been asking of late. So it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts on that, because there has been a lot of talk about it. Does it still have a place in today's cricket with the rise of T20 cricket, especially shorter and convenient for people, whereas a one-day match goes for 7 or 8 hours? Not really convenient to watch, especially during a weekday. Well, I guess it's okay during the weekend, I suppose, or Friday night, where people are at home. But it would be interesting to hear your thoughts, everyone, on that. But thanks for joining us, everyone. And also thank you, everyone, for helping us to reach 600 subscribers. We're in the 590s for a little while there, the nervous 590s. So it's finally to get that single to bring up the 600 and raise the bat for 600 subscribers. So thanks, everyone, for helping us reach that milestone. And the race to 700 subscribers begins now. So hopefully we can get another 100 more runs and raise the bat again for the 700. But thanks, everyone, for reaching us to that milestone, which is fantastic, and hopefully we can get many more. Jihan, you say, do you think if limited overs internationals are just T20s, players will stop caring about winning because it's a lottery most of the time? Well, then it will become a little bit boring, I think. I don't mind T20 cricket. I like all forms of cricket, of course, all 3 formats. But, T20 cricket is a bit of luck. Whoever turns up on the day will win. And, I think it will just be a bit boring if it's just T20s and test matches. You have one-day cricket, it's something different. You know, people would prefer watching one-dayers over T20s. But the future of ODIs is in a bit of a complicated crossroads sort of position now, where a lot of people are questioning its relevance today. But I think with the players, I think, you know, they play a lot of in these franchise leagues anyway, and they earn lots of money. And when they play T20 internationals for their country, you know, they can earn a lot of money playing in the IPL, for example. So I guess it won't have any effect on the players, obviously. It's more easy on players in terms of their bodies and their longevity compared to test matches and ODIs. That takes a lot out of you. So I think they will care about winning still. Because when you always play for your country, you want to win every game that you play. So I don't think that will be lost. But I think it will become a little bit boring if T20 cricket is, you know, the only format with Test cricket, and the ODIs become a thing of the past. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next little period. But yeah, I think for T20 internationals, I think a lot of people have said, well, just keep T20 internationals for World Cups and don't really play them for bilateral series. I think the Future Tours program has a lot of T20 internationals played over the next 4 years. I think it's over 300 or something. So that's a lot. As Shami's in to Green. This one, a swing and a miss from Green. And straight through to the keeper for no run. So I hope that answers your question there, Jihad. But it will be an interesting period of the game that it's starting to come. We'll go into now. Really, the future of the game is it's at an interesting point, at an interesting junction. So there are a lot of people concerned about the future of the game going forward, and hoping that a lot of the issues can be fixed and resolved. As Shami in again to Green, this one bowled him, clean bowled him, and Shami picks up another wicket. Cameron Green's got to go. He's bowled neck and crump. The death rattle has happened for Cameron Green. He's got to start walking back to the pavilion. Australia are 6 for 174. And they've sort of lost their way a little bit. India have done well. They've come back nicely after the fast start by Australia. Cameron Green just probably playing the wrong line. That ball just came back in from Shami. He's a good bowler, Shami. Just have a look. Yeah, just hitting the top of the off stump, and that's a good delivery from Shami. Hitting the top of off stump, getting Cameron Green forward. Playing a miss from Green, and he's bowled. And he's got to go, Cameron Green. He only made 12. It's 6 for 174. And that will bring Marcus Stoinis to the middle. And he'll join Glenn Maxwell. So really, this is the last recognised partnership for Australia. If Australia are going to post a competitive total, they're on track to get 300 plus at one stage. Mitchell Marsh was really teeing off. But I don't think Mitchell Marsh needed to do that. I think he needed to play a little bit smartly there. I think he was just throwing his hands at everything and just looking to slog everything out of the ground. And that was his undoing in the end. Got an outside edge off one of the spinners. I can't remember who. I've got to look back on the scorecard. But and then short third man got him out. Caught the catch. So Australia, they are a little bit reliant on their all-rounders. They've got a few all-rounders in the side today. And really, Marcus Stoinis and Glenn Maxwell. No Sean Abbott. He's more than capable with the bat as well. But really, it's up to Stoinis and Maxwell to really get Australia to a competitive total here. I think 250 should be the goal. If they can get towards 300, touch 300, I guess that's a good result. But Mohammad Shami, he's got 2 wickets for 17. He's always a good bowler. always challenging the batters on that off stump, and that's what he did for Cameron Green. He just got stuck on the crease a little bit there, Green, and looking back on that dismissal, he wouldn't be too pleased. Marcus Stoinis, interesting career. Anyway, Shami into Stoinis. Oh, drop catch from slip. Shubman Gill there at slip. Marcus Stoinis got an outside edge. He hit it straight down Shubman Gill's throat, and he put it down, Shubman Gill. That would have been 2 wickets and 2 balls. Well, I think for Marcus Stoinis, a nervous shot. Just a little bit nervous there. He can be a nervous starter, Stoinis. That one outside off stump. Stoinis just fishing for the ball. And Shubman Gill just snatching that ball. Could have taken it easily, but he put it down. That would have been another wicket for Shami. Shami in again to Stoinis. Stoinis defends on the front foot. This one trickles out to mid-on for a dot ball. Well, not convincing from Marcus Stoinis' first ball he faced. He was just playing away from his body, fishing outside the off stump, and nearly would have walked back to the pavilion for a golden duck. But he'll be saying, thank goodness that Shubman Gill put the catch down. Now he's got to make the most of it, Marcus Stoinis, and really switch back on after that rash shot, or that shot that he didn't really need to play, really. But India have done well. They've really clawed things back. The run rate was out of control at one stage. Boundaries were raining down, and they were able to put the stops on Australia and pick up wickets. Shami in to Stoinis, who defends back down the pitch for no run. It's the end of the over. 6 for 174. Successful over for Mohammad Shami. It's a wicket maiden, and he'll be pleased with that over. Jihan, you say, the question is, are T20 internationals just for entertainment, or do people, players and fans really care about the result? If they don't, it makes it meaningless. I think outside of World Cups, I think they're pretty pointless, because there's nothing to be gained or anything. They're just there as a bit of an add-on to the tour. They're just there to generate money and profits and revenue. So after you play a test series and an ODI series, you have a few T20s to finish. So they can be a little bit pointless at times, or meaningless. If it's a World Cup, then at least it's something. But outside of that, there's nothing much to gain from it, really. It's just there just as an add-on. So I think some people couldn't care less if, let's just say Australia and India played a T20 series and, Australia won or India won. Well, many people wouldn't care about that because it's just a T20 series. People care about, if you win a test series in, either country, either India or Australia, most people would care about that than T20. So it depends. It's your personal preference. If you do care or not. For me, I'm not really too bothered if, Australia played a T20 series and don't win. It's not the end of the world. I think the players, of course, they want to try and win every game they play and series. So, as I mentioned before, it's just your personal preference whether you care or not. And many people have those views, especially towards T20 cricket. John says 280, did I say? I meant 180. Well, let's hope they can get past 180, John. I think for Australia, it was a good start, and then they sort of just fell away a little bit. 20 overs remaining, and they need a score that is competitive, maybe 250 or something like that. But have the faith, John. Have the faith. Maxwell and Stoinis, they're capable. On their day, they can be damaging. As this one swept outside off stump. Around the corner, down to fine leg for 4 runs. The the fielder at fine leg was sort of just sliding and sticking out his leg to stop that ball, but crossed over the boundary for 4. Stoinis picks up a boundary. That was a bit of a wrong in there from Kuldeep Yadav that came out of the front of the hand. Good from Stoinis that he pretty much picked it, but an indication of a batsman not really picking a spinner is when they sweep. And for Marcus Stoinis, I don't think he really picked that if that was a wrong-un. So he went for the sweep option and it paid off. He got 4. Stoinis works it off his hip, round the corner, behind square on the leg side for a single. Jihan said, why is Green batting so far back in his crease? This isn't the whacker. Yes, say Jihan, that was a Hanscom-esque dismissal playing from the crease. Yeah. We saw that from Peter Hanscom as well throughout the Test series, playing back in his crease there. Kuldeep Yadav dropped the ball in his run-up, so he has to go again. And that one just slipped out of his hands there. So he getting ready to bowl this 5th ball of the over. He's in now to Maxwell. Around left arm over the wicket to Maxwell. Maxwell hits it back down the ground to Minoff for a dot ball. Didn't quite time that. 6 for 180 Australia. 31st over about to be completed. And Glenn Maxwell, what can he do? He's on return from injury. And he pulls this one, Maxwell, through square leg for 4 to win the over nicely with a boundary. That's not what you want to do as a bowler. You want to finish the over nicely. Unfortunately, if you go for 4, it's not a good over in the end. And it's a nice result for Australia there. A bit short there from Kuldeep Yadav. He was on that in a flash, Glenn Maxwell. He pulled that nicely through square leg for 4. And hopefully they will kickstart Glenn Maxwell in this innings, that's for sure. And it's the end of the over. Australia be hoping to get to 250 maybe, something competitive. 6 for 184 after 31. Nearly towards the end of the Australian innings. And they'll be hoping to try and get to that score of 250 if they can. Mohammad Shami in, traps Stoinis on the crease. There's an appeal for LBW, trapped him in front on his pads. India were excited for the appeal, and then they quickly withdrawn the appeal. And they're thinking about reviewing it maybe, probably not. They've only got one review left, and they decide not to review. I think a wise decision in the end. Let's just have a look. Yeah, probably going down leg side there. Good decision by the umpire. Mohammad Shami was up and about with that appeal. And India not really going upstairs for that one. They weren't really thinking about that. Going down the leg side it was. So good decision by the umpire and good decision not to review. Shami in to Stoinis, who defends to the fielder at cover. And there's no run. He's bowled well, Mohammad Shami, 2 for 17. He's into his 6th over. John says going down the leg side. Yes, it was. But good decision from the Indian team not to review that. You can get a little bit excited as a bowler. And that's why when it comes to DRS, don't really pay attention to the bowlers because they always think everything's out. But you just got to have a calm head on your shoulders and think about it logically. As Shami into Stoinis, outside edge, gone. Caught it slip again. Shami picks up his 3rd. That is the end of Stoinis. Australia are 7 for 184. Well, this innings has gone completely the other way. And Australia were on par for scoring a very competitive total of probably 300 plus at the rate they were scoring at the start of this match. And all of a sudden, this match has gone the other way. India have picked up wickets. Marcus Stoinis just playing away from his body. And it was an easy catch for Shubman Gill at sort of a second slip. Wasn't quite in a first slip position. The Indian, he takes the catch comfortably chest height. He put one down, and he dropped Marcus Stoinis earlier, Shubman Gill. First ball that he faced off Mohammad Shami. Now, Mohammad Shami gets his revenge. He gets the outside edge, and finally it's been taken by Gill at slip. Didn't really cost India all that much. And Marcus Stoinis will have to walk back to the pavilion up the stairs. And he is gone. It's 7 for 184. Australia looking to, well, could be bowled out for probably 200 here, which is not ideal. But you have to say it's a different sort of team, different combination that they've selected for this game today. But they wouldn't be happy after the start they had. These fall of wickets haven't really helped them. Sean Abbott arrives at the crease. He's done pretty well, Sean Abbott. He's bowled well. He's in good touch. And he's done well for New South Wales over the last few seasons. And he's bowled well. He had another pretty good BBL season for the Sydney Sixers. So he comes in now. On strike now to Shami, who's past the umpire. He's in, and Abbott defends onto the leg side to mid-on for no run. Well, you have to say, if Australia are going to get a competitive total, it'll have to be up to Glenn Maxwell. If he can score a significant contribution here, then Australia may have a chance. But, disappointing, Australia. Marcus Stoinis just playing away from his body. That's not really what you want to do. And pretty much the only way you're going to get out is nicking it, and that's what happened. As Shami's in again, this one a play and a miss from Abbott. Past his outside edge, straight through to the keeper for no runs. He's bowling well, Shami, 3 for 17. He's good line and length. Always challenging the batters on that off stump. Sean Abbott didn't go searching for the ball like Marcus Stoinis did. He played the line. And just a good delivery from Shami. And if you're nicking that as a batsman, well, you just have to say, well bowled. He's bowling well, Shami. Last ball of his over. Abbott yet to get off the mark. Needs to stay around and get a partnership with Glenn Maxwell here. Australia need a competitive total here, probably 250 maybe. Give them a chance. I don't think that could be enough, given how good the surface is in Mumbai at the Wankhede. As Shami in to Abbott, who defends onto the offside for no runs. The end of the over. It's 7 for 184 after 32. So a wicket maiden again from Mohammad Shami, and picked up the wicket of Marcus Stoinis. So 32 overs are done. Australia 7 for 184. And the change of format and hopefully a change of result on this tour for Australia, but unfortunately that hasn't been the case. Struggling a little bit in the later stages of their innings here. John says, not the first time we've seen this happen. Can't blame the pitch. Well, it's a pretty good surface. We saw that earlier with Australia scoring runs at will. They've lost 3 for 23 in the last 30 balls. Now, that's not pretty good. You want to have wickets in hand, and that's the key in one-day cricket. Jihan says, yeah, India will come out and show what a road this is. They probably will. Or they'll probably struggle and lose a few wickets. You never know. But it's a pretty good surface. It's not too many demons or gremlins in the surface. It's pretty good for batting. So we saw, Mitchell Marsh score 81. But yet again, probably not, probably the right time for Marsh to get out at that stage. He would have been handy right now. As Jadeja replaces Kuldeep Yadav, and Maxwell defends the first ball for a dot. He's the key, Glenn Maxwell. He's really got to bat out this innings. Jadeja in to Maxwell, gone, caught at mid-wicket. Didn't quite time it, Glenn Maxwell, and he's hit it straight to the fielder at mid-wicket. He was trying to go up and over the top. Didn't quite time it. Jadeja picks up his second, and that's a pretty ordinary dismissal from Glenn Maxwell. We've seen it from time and time again from Glenn Maxwell. He can play some terrible shots. That one's not probably his best. Australia 8 for 184. You'll have to say India are firm favourites to win. That's not going to be enough on the surface, given the powerful batting that India have. Yeah, he just shanked it. Really, Glenn Maxwell. The bat turned in his hands. He should have really, done better there, Glenn Maxwell. So he didn't quite time that at all. He's gone for 8. It's 8 for 184. And Australia, it was a good start. And then all of a sudden, the loss of wickets, India have done well to claw it back. Mitchell Starc, what can he do? He's not bad with the bat. He can hit a few long balls, but you'll have to try and construct an innings here if you can. Australia have only got 2 wickets left. They're probably in danger of not batting the 50 overs. But look, at the end of the day, really, it doesn't really matter if Australia go on to lose this series or win the series. They would like to win the series, of course, but really, I don't think many people would care if they don't win the series or lose it. Given that, this one-day series doesn't really equate to qualification for the World Cup or anything like that. So it's all about preparation. It's all about trying to get used to these conditions and probably figure out what we need to do better in these conditions. And you probably have to say, well, Australia's batting today has been a contrast of 2 things. Number one, it was pretty good at the start. They were looking to score runs at will. And then they lost wickets at regular intervals. And that's pretty much what's cost Australia here, which is not a surprise. When you lose wickets at regular intervals and clumps, it's always hard to come back from that. As Mitchell Starc, he'll pick up 4 runs down to the third-man boundary for 4. That's a handy boundary for Australia. They'll take every run they can get. Look, Jihan says they haven't rotated the strike much, have they? Blocked 4 or 6 West Indies style play. Yeah, they haven't been a little bit lacking that little bit of intimacy or intent in their innings today. Australia at times, but it was good intent at the start, mainly from Mitchell Marsh showed that intent. But I felt like Mitchell Marsh, he could have been a lot smarter in that situation. He was good. He didn't need to hit every ball out of the park for 6, but that's just the way he plays. He could have been a little bit smarter about that innings. He could have gone on and scored a big century, but he just threw it away. And that's the end of the over. It's 8 for 188. Australia. 33 overs have been bowled. Australia need to find a way to bat out the 50 overs if they can. They've only got 2 wickets in hand. G. Hunt says game over. What a terrible shot. Yeah, it wasn't the best shot from Glenn Maxwell. We've seen that a lot from his career. He can be inconsistent. John says Australia has lost the ability to actually play cricket. Shocking and woeful. Hello, centre half forward. Hope you're well. Jihan says they had such a great ODI side for 15 to 20 years. You wouldn't see this from Ponting, Martin, Simons, or Hussey, etc. No, that was a pretty good side. In Australia's heyday, dominant era, it would be interesting if you had that great ODI side play against this ODI side at the moment. It would be an interesting game. I think probably the side of Ponting, etc., would have won maybe against this side today. But it was a very good team back in those days. Mohammad Siraj replaces Mohammad Shami. And first delivery of this over is a dot. So that's understandable. And really for Australia, they're going to pick up the runs. They're going to try and rotate strike. If they can get over 200, I think that's a positive. David Warner not playing today. Picked up another injury in the nets before this game. I don't know what happened. I didn't quite read up on that. Maybe he got hit somewhere. He is coming back from that fractured elbow from the second test that he got sent home and obviously with that concussion as well. But not playing this first game today, David Warner. That's why Mitchell Marsh opened the batting for the first time in one-day cricket. Well, that tells you a story. Australia's wickets at regular intervals have fallen at regular intervals here, and they haven't helped themselves. Australia, they were on track for a good score, but it's all come loose. As this one's a play and a miss from Abbott, straight through to the keeper for no run. Dr. Jihan says they need a performance like when they bowled New Zealand out for 82, but I can't see that happening. Yes, that was a pretty good game. And yes, that was a pretty good game. And, well, Australia shouldn't have won that game, but they did. And it was good bowling. And they'll probably need that today, but I don't think that's going to happen. It's a different pitch as it was in Cairns, and he's gone, Abbott. He's gone. He played away from his body, outside edge. Shubman Gill's having a field day in the slips. He's taken another catch in the slips. It's like slip catching practice in the morning where the coaches just edge the bat to the fielders so they can catch it. And that's what it's been like for Shubman Gill today. The Australians have given him some practice in the slips. That's another catch, and Abbott's gone. It's 9 for 188. And Siraj picks up a wicket. This one outside off stump. And yet again, Sean Abbott playing away from his body. And another good catch from Shubman Gill, down low to his right. He's a pretty good fielder. He's a good talent. It'll be exciting to see what he can do with the bat in the second innings, in the run chase, because India would not have to chase a lot. Abbott's gone for a 7-ball duck. Wasn't pretty much productive from him today. He'll need to be productive with the ball. And Adam Zampa, the number 11, comes out to the middle. And you probably think that Australia will probably not get a lot out of Adam Zampa. He's pretty much in the side for his bowling, not to make runs. So it's been disappointing from Australia. It's a good surface, and they've just played some rash shots, and it's been pretty poor. Jihan says Warner got 5 bruising from an inside edge. Well, thanks for that, Jihan. So not as severe. So at least that's good news for David Warner, and hopefully he can come back for the second game, which is on Sunday or something like that, from Vizag. And Adam Zampa will take strike to Siraj. Could be all over on this ball here. And Siraj could pick up 2 wickets and 2 balls and probably not get a hat-trick. That's the last wicket. But he'll be hoping to finish it off here. Siraj in. This one, playing a miss from Zampa. No, he's gone. Has he edged it? Now then, it did deviate. Past the inside edge. Yeah, it's gone. Yeah, he's gone. Is it? No. Well, they're showing the replay. I think that was just... Well, they're showing the replay of the last wicket. That was Sean Abbott getting caught at slip by Gill. Very good catch again. A slip catching practice for Shubman Gill today, because all the Australians have played away from their body and edged the ball. And that's not what you need to do as a batter. You need to play close, your hands close into your body. Good delivery there from Siraj. That one a play and a miss past Adam Zampa's inside edge again. An exact replica of the previous ball from Siraj. So Zampa survives. It's the end of the over. It's 9 for 188. So wicket maiden for Siraj. Now, Australia, 9 for 188. Can they get to 200? That's quite a few runs away, especially with 1 wicket remaining. So Mitchell Starc, you think, will have to take most of the strike. Good to see some Australian supporters in the crowd. John says, don't forget Michael Clarke. Yes, he was a part of that great side. Jihan says, and of course, Shane Watson. Yep, Shane Watson was pretty good. Jihan says, they've lost 6 for 60 on this flat deck. This is awful. Well, it's not good when you lose 6 for 60, especially on a surface that's not really doing much. So Jihan says, Zampa's in the side for his fielding, catching in particular. Well, I wouldn't say that, Jihan. I would say he's in the side for his bowling as well. Adam Zampa has done well in the last few years with the ball for Australia. And certainly picked up a lot of wickets in that time as well. Speaking of leg spinners, Kuldeep Yadav back into the attack. And Stark defends the first ball for a dot ball. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And Australia in a spot of bother at 9 for 188. They've lost wickets at regular intervals and clumps. And Yadav in again to Stark, who defends onto the offside for no run. As Kuldeep's in. This one driven off the back foot from Stark, but straight to the fielder at cover. There's no run again. It's a good build-up of pressure. As Yadav's in again. Stark just defends it back to Yadav for the run. Jihan says I was joking. I've seen Zampa drop more catches than he's caught. Well, he has dropped a few. But you don't mean to drop a catch. They just happen. But if Australia are going to win this game today, they'll need everything to go their way, especially catches and chances. This one defended again by Stark, back down the pitch to Yadav for no run. It's a pretty nice day in Mumbai, nice and sunny. Temperature in the 30s. And a lot of people out watching the cricket at the Wankhede Stadium. Kuldeep into Stark. This one outside off stump. Stark works it to the fielder at mid-wicket for no run. It's the end of the over. It's a maiden. It's 9 for 188. Nine for 188. Australia losing wickets in clumps. It hasn't been a good day for them. It was a promising start, especially in the first 10 overs when Marsh and Smith were combining nicely for a partnership of 50 plus. And then Smith got out, and then Mitchell Marsh got out soon after for 81. Zampa says, John says Zampa has dropped the mullet. Jinx. Well, he certainly changed his hairstyle quite a few times, Adam Zampa. Mohammad Siraj to continue to Zampa. This one again beats Zampa. Pass his bat for no run. Good bowling from Siraj. Jihan says, do Australia have much ODI practice before the World Cup, or they're just wasting time playing T20s? Jihan, I think Australia's next T20 is in August or something like that. I think it's later on in the year. So Australia don't play too many T20s this year. A lot of ODI cricket, of course. I'll have to check the program, but Australia's next T20 match is later in the year, I think, or next year. I'm not sure. But we don't play one for a while. This one again, playing a miss from Zampa, and there's no run. But obviously, for Australia to have success in the subcontinent, especially for a World Cup, I do remember what happened in 2011. Now, that wasn't a great well, you can say it was a great World Cup for Australia. They made it to the knockouts, but then they got defeated by India in that semi-final or quarterfinal. And then they were just a few games away from reaching that World Cup final in 2011. So definitely, I think for Australia, they would like to get better in these conditions, especially in the lead up to the World Cup later this year. But you also got to remember that Australia has cancelled a few ODI series as well, Jihan, and that's been well documented as well. We didn't play against South Africa, and obviously the other ODI series that was cancelled. So Australia have not played some ODI series. They've pulled out or cancelled for various reasons. And we all know what happened with South Africa pulling out of that series because of the T20 tournament in South Africa. So So Australia's ODIs last year and this year, the number has decreased a little bit. But, they're professionals and they'll find ways to prepare and get better going forward. I guess that's just international cricket, isn't it? You're going to have less time to prepare for tournaments. Just want to play and a miss again from Zampa. He's bowling well, Siraj. Or is he out? Has he nicked it? Zampa? I think he has. Well, he's walking off, Adam Zampa, and yes, that's gone. That's the end of the innings. Mohammad Siraj finally, after a few plays and misses past the outside edge of Adam Zampa, he's finally nicked it, Adam Zampa, and he's gone. And Australia are bowled out for 188. And Adam Zampa finally nicking this ball after playing and missing so many times in the over. Siraj finally gets the last wicket. He really set up Adam Zampa well there in that over. Adam Zampa disappointed, but he's not in the team to score runs. He's in the team to take wickets. It's up to the top order and middle order to do that. So 35.4 overs. Australia have not batted their 50 overs. They're all out for 188. So it's fairly certain that India should be able to chase down these runs with ease. 188 is not really that challenging of a score. And you would think India will blaze through it in quick succession. But they've done well, India. After a very difficult start, they've been able to pull things back nicely. For Australia, loss of wickets at regular intervals, that hasn't really helped them today. So there we go. Australia all out for 188. India will need 189 to win and to lead the series 1-0 in the best of 3. John, I'm not sure we are. We already played the ODI series against England, obviously last summer. So I don't think we're playing some ODIs against England after the Ashes. I don't think we are. I may need to check the schedule, and as we do have this innings break, it gives us an opportunity to do that and have a look to see what Australia's next matches are. So there we go, innings break, and Australia all out for 188. India will need 189 to win. So I'll come back to you on that one, John. I'll have a bit of a look now and see if there are some ODIs after that Ashes series. Jihan says Australia played well in 2011, but just got overpowered in the end by India. Also took an extreme pace attack of Lee, Tate, and Johnson, which didn't really work on Indian pitches. Yes, we did have Sean Tate. We did have Brett Lee. We did have Mitchell Johnson. Yeah, but that Australian team obviously was in, coming towards the end of that dominant era, of course, obviously. So, if Australia want to do better this time around, they really got to learn from the past and what they did in that World Cup in 2011. Yes, say Jihad also missed a decent spin at that time. Can't remember who it was. Dirty, maybe. Yes, I think Xavier Dirty did play in that World Cup, I think. Was in that squad. John says, I wasn't off the mark. No, John, you weren't. You were pretty much on the bullseye. Jihan says, geez, I hope India win by 10 wickets to really give a rocket up them. It would be a crushing defeat if that's the case. And you know what Shubman Gill is going to do? He's going to play his shots. And after what we saw in the last test, he's in good touch. He's scored a double century. I believe it was against New Zealand recently when India won that ODI series against New Zealand a few months ago. And he scored 200 in one of the games. So he's definitely in good touch. So Australia will have to get him out and take a few wickets, and hopefully it's not a crushing defeat today. Tris Canu, excuse my pronunciation. You say 10 wickets in 20 overs would be fun. Yeah, pretty much. That would be fun. Yes, say Jihan, that was embarrassing. Yeah, it was a little bit. Not really good. But look, really, I'm not really concerned, really. it comes down to that sort of thing. Do you really care if Australia win or lose this series? Really, I would like Australia to win the series, but, if they don't win the series, it's not the end of the world. It's a series that's pretty much for preparation and leading up to the World Cup later on this year, which is the bigger prize. So, yeah, not a great day for Australia. CJ, you say you can't count Australia out for giving a good old collapse on Indian soil, even with the white ball. Yeah, well, you got to remember it's a different side. So you have some players from the Test side. Obviously, you have some players who are coming back from injury, like Glenn Maxwell, for example. Different side to the Test side. Obviously, first game for them on this tour. So trying to get accustomed to conditions, and unfortunately, they haven't quite done that well today, Australia. So India will need 189 to win, and it was an interesting start from Australia today. They started well, and then it sort of went downhill after that. Jihan says Australia played really well in the 96 World Cup on the subcontinent, but that was a long time ago. Remember them chasing 288 against New Zealand in the quarterfinals. Mark Waugh played really well. Yes, they did. And they also had that wonderful match against the West Indies as well, where they won by a very slim margin, Australia, but that was a brilliant game against the West Indies in 96 in that World Cup. And they went on to play Sri Lanka in the final, and Sri Lanka won their first ever World Cup. Yes, we did, Jihan. Yes, our first ever World Cup was on the subcontinent, and that was in 1987. And that's where Alan Border sort of led the resurgence in Australian cricket. You've got to remember the 80s wasn't a good period for Australian cricket. And Alan Border was a reluctant captain. Bob Simpson was a very good coach, and he turned things around with Simo. He was a very fine opening batter himself, Bob Simpson, in his Test career. He got a triple century against England, which was his first century in Test cricket. That was 311. And he scored that as his first Test century. So, if you wanted a couple of people to really turn things around for Australian cricket, it was definitely Bob Simpson and Alan Border, of course. And many people will say the same. And that World Cup in 87 is where Australia started to get things together. And that sort of led on to what they did under Alan Border, and then Mark Taylor, and then Steve Waugh, and then Ricky Ponting carried on the legacy. Yes, John, 87 is when the tide turned for Australia. Yes, it did. And it was quite interesting listening to Alan Border speak about that in that documentary on Fox recently that they did on him. Quite interesting to learn about, his experience as a captain and leading the side and turning the side around from a side that was underperforming, that hadn't won a Test match for a long time, to a side that was performing. And, definitely the godfather of Australian cricket, Alan Border, definitely. A very fine player as well in his career. Had that opportunity when World Series cricket was around. He got that opportunity to get into the Test side. And, that was his opportunity that he took, and he took it with both hands. Jihan says, I watched that 96 semi-final against the West Indies, and I supported West Indies over Australia back then. But it was a monumental mess-up from the West Indies. They lost the game. They were on their way to winning easily. Yes. Yes, they did. And they lost wickets at regular intervals. And it was a very tight game in the end. And Australia did very well to win that game and go through to the World Cup final in 96. Yes, say Jihan, West Indies lower order, tried to slog, Shane Warne unnecessarily, and collapsed. And Australia won by 5 runs. Yep. A very tight margin indeed, especially in one-day cricket. But, 1996, quite an interesting World Cup in the subcontinent, India, Pakistan, and a very interesting World Cup indeed in 1996, which is a long time ago. But what would 2023 bring us? And who will take out the World Cup this year? That will be the interesting question. But, England, they'll be favourites, of course. They've had a bit of a up and down period of one-day cricket of late. They haven't really been playing well. Recently against Bangladesh, they lost that T20 series 3-0, and they struggled a bit. So they may struggle in this World Cup in India. You never know, England. Obviously, they're going to be favourites. We can't discount them. Australia, India, New Zealand are always up there. So it should be an interesting World Cup at the end of the year. John says, Chappelli, Captain Grumpy, and Tubby are all favourite skippers. Yeah, that's quite interesting listening to Ian Chappell's philosophy on captaincy. As we know, Ian Chappell, Chappelli's quite upfront, tells it how it is. But, he was a very good captain, especially when he took over and in the 70s, and did a very good job. Alan Border was good as well. Mark Taylor, Tubby was good. And, Australia was blessed to have very good captains over its history. And Australian cricket was in good hands in those eras under those leaders. Jihan, you say, I once met Otis Gibson when he was coaching England, and I asked him about that game because he was playing in it. You say, Jihan, but he couldn't remember, or he pretended he couldn't. Well, I think he probably didn't want to remember that game, obviously, given how close it was and how demoralising it was when the West Indies did lose that close game by 5 runs. So I can understand why he wanted to erase that from the memory bank. But, he was a part of history. It was a very good game, close game. And we've seen some very good games in one-day cricket. Obviously, a few days ago was the anniversary of the famous 434, 438 game where Australia played South Africa, and South Africa were able to chase down that mammoth total by Australia. Some very good centuries, from Herschel Gibbs. Scored a very good century in that game. And, what a game of cricket that was. So a few days ago was the anniversary of that game, and probably considered to be one of the great ODIs of all time. So we've seen some very good ODIs over the years, that being one of them. John says, that's what I like about Chappelli, always up front, and his attitude about players needing to want the ball to come to them. Yes, he's always that positive, aggressive style of captaincy in Chappell. And that's what you want, I suppose, looking to win the game from ball one. And he was sort of that captain. And it paid off. Yesterday, Giant Australia were 11 for 4 in that game. And Bevan, Stuart Law and Healy got them out of trouble. Yeah, some good players there. Michael Bevan was a very good one-day player for Australia. Stuart Law was a handy player, but only played one test. He played in Ricky Ponting's debut test against Sri Lanka at Perth in the Wacker in 95. That was his only test, got 50, never played again for Australia, and obviously Ian Healy, a very good keeper. So Australia were blessed with very talented, skillful players throughout the years. And very good players indeed. And that's why Australia was so good for so long, with the talent that was coming through in those years, those games, those eras. So the innings break, Australia 188 in 35.4 overs. And you would think that this will be finished quickly by India. In the run chase, only needed 189. Jihan says, back when the West Indies attack was Walsh, Ambrose and Bishop and were feared. Yeah, there were they had a pretty good attack, the West Indies, with Walsh, Ambrose and Bishop, and obviously the attack that was before them is, of course, the four horsemen: Roberts, Gardner, Croft, Holding, Marshall, when he came on the scene. I don't think anyone wanted to face them at that time. And the West Indies have always had good players. Yeah. We have the innings break, but I'm just watching highlights of a one-dayer between Australia and India. I believe it's at the Adelaide Oval. And it is. It's at the old Adelaide Oval before it was redeveloped. Recognise the stands. Must be in the 90s, I think. Sachin Tendulkar was playing in this game. So some highlights during the innings break before we continue with the second innings on Fox. Always nice to see the old games. Just showing some highlights of a one-day match that was played between Australia and India back at the Adelaide Oval. And the Adelaide Oval looking splendid as always, even back then before it was redeveloped. It's old stands. Jihan says, I'm right in thinking Ian Chappell never lost a series as captain and Viv Richards as well. That is right, Jihan. Ian Chappell never lost a series as captain. Same with Richie Benaud. And obviously Viv Richards never lost a series, of course. So you're right there. Ian Chappell never lost a series. He did take over in that 70-71 series in the Ashes. Obviously, when Bill Lawry got sacked, he took over after Bill got sacked in that series. Obviously, Australia lost that series. So you would count that as probably a series loss, but he only took over halfway through the series. So maybe you wouldn't count that as a series lost. So taking that to one side, you'd probably think he never lost a series in his time as captain. He was only captain for a short while. I think he was captain from 71 to 75, and then that's where he retired. After the test match at the Oval, he said, that's it, I'm done, I'm cooked. I don't want to be captain anymore, and that's pretty much the end of my career. He retired when he was in his late 20s as well, Ian Chappell. So he wasn't captain for very long, but he had a very good success rate. But a very fine captain, always got the best out of his players. And interesting to hear his thoughts on captaincy. John says, Michael Holding was my favourite West Indian bowler. So graceful. Yes, whispering death. Michael Holding. Very fine bowler. Kicked over the stumps in New Zealand. I wasn't happy with the umpiring in that test match. Kicked over the stumps. Wasn't happy with Frank Goodall. He was the New Zealand umpire. The West Indies weren't happy in that test match in 1980, I think, in New Zealand. Kicked over the stumps in that test match, Michael Holding, but very fine bowler and very good commentator as well. Always liked listening to his thoughts on the game. I just say, Jihan, my dad reminded me the other day, Chappell, and Chappell said Kawash and Travis Head weren't test class. But he's generally spot on, to be fair. Yeah, well, he is. But obviously, Kawaja and Travis Head have done pretty well in Test cricket. And Kawaja's resurgence has been good. I know Gabe talked about that during our 3 wickets on Cricket for Americans recently. Talked about Kawaja and talked about his resurgence since coming back into the Test side. Definitely one of Australia's best batters on this recent tour to India, of course. He pretty much outbatted the rest. Over nearly 300 runs in the series. That was a pretty good series in the subcontinent in India. So pretty good series for Kawaja. And thank goodness that his knee injury is not too severe. And hopefully he'll be back for the WTC final, which will be in June. And that's the next assignment for both of the teams in Test cricket. A World Test Championship final, which is not far away in June. And bit touch and go. Obviously, the IPL finishes close to that final, around about the 28th of March. So it's a quick turnaround. But some of the Australian players who are part of the Test side are not really playing playing in the IPL this year. John says, hard man, Dibbly. Yes, he was a tough character in Chapel. But a very good cricketing family, of course. Him, Greg and Trevor all played Test cricket for Australia. And did well, obviously. Trevor didn't play many Test matches, but he was a fine cricketer himself. Jihan says, I think it's a risk taking two 36-year-old openers on the Ashes tour, but can't really see anyone taking over. Harris and Bancroft both have technical issues, and Renshaw hasn't set the world alight. No, I think, look, with Australia, they will definitely take Khawaja and Warner, obviously. And there's been a lot of talk about David Warner, whether he will retire or before the Ashes or after the Ashes. I think he will play the Ashes. I think he'll definitely be there. He'll play in the WTC. Australia have said he's definitely in the plans for that. So I think that could be the swan song for David Warner, and I think we've got to be realistic. I think he's coming to the age where, the reactions are not quite there as they used to, and that's been an indication over the last little bit with him struggling a little bit. So in Khawaja, the last Ashes series that he was on, 2019, didn't really perform well in that series, but he's a different player now. And but yeah, as you said, Jihan, there's no one else coming through. You've got Harris and Bancroft, as you mentioned, and Renshaw. They've had their problems. They've been in and out of the side for a bit. So Will Bukowski was talked about, but he's got problems with concussion and coming back from that. So there's no one really knocking the door down to really take the place of Khawaja and Warner at this stage. But they'll definitely be there, and they're in good. Well, especially Khawaja, he's in good touch. David Warner will have a bit of a battle with Stuart Broad. He's got to really work out how to combat that angle from Stuart Broad, who's bowling right arm around the wicket into David Warner and trying to angle the ball away or nip it off the seam. So he's really got to fix that problem, because Stuart Broad will definitely do that again come this Ashes series. He'll definitely bowl that same angle to Warner and probably have success like he did in the last Ashes in 2019. Yes, to say Khawaja, 2019, Khawaja kept getting starts and getting out. I hope he doesn't do the same this time. I don't think he will, Jihan. I think he's a different player. Since he's come back, different player, different mentality, Khawaja. He's in good touch, good form. I think he'll do okay. I think he'll probably have a good series, and depends what sort of pitches England prepare for that series, because they're playing Bazball and they're going down that route. So it'll be interesting to see what will happen. It's definitely going to be an interesting Ashes series, and it's a series that we're all looking forward to, that's for sure, in the next few months. It's not too far away. But always excitement when it's an Ashes year. Jihan says, my dad keeps telling me Matt Short is the guy. I've not really seen him bat. Maybe more a white ball player. He's done okay in Sheffield Shield cricket for Victoria. I think he's just scored another 100 recently for Victoria, Matt Short. But he's definitely on the radar. He had a pretty good BBL for the Strikers, and it's good to see him perform well there. He's done pretty well in the Sheffield Shield of late. He scored that century recently. So he's definitely on the radar for Australia, probably more so in ODIs and T20s at this stage. But if he has some good performances on a consistent basis in first-class cricket, then he may be considered for Test honours down the track. But he's definitely a player to look out for, that's for sure. Let's say John Warner has also had recent issues with the media. Then on top of that, injuries, and I think that 200 here cooked him. Uzi matured mentally with the move to Queensland. And he did. I think Usman Khawaja is in a good place in his life. I think that's helped him a lot. He's not stressed. He's not worried about, if this is going to be my last game for Australia or whatever. I think he's quite laid back, as that's his character, and he doesn't really care as much as probably he used to. So probably moving from New South Wales to Queensland has definitely done the trick, and he's in a good place in his life. He's got a family. He's performing well. He's come back. So yeah, he's definitely in a good place. David Warner, yep. He's had his battles, of course, over the last few years. But probably this will be his last, opportunity in Test cricket for Australia. So he would like to go out on a positive note, and you don't want to see players struggle towards the end of their career, and you want to see them leave the game on a high note. Obviously, cricket, that's not really the thing in cricket, really. It doesn't really go to plan at times. Even the best players in the world finished on low periods. Take Sir Donald Bradman, for example, getting out for a duck in his last innings at the Oval in 1948. So it doesn't end on a good note sometimes, but you wish it does. But he'll definitely be there in England, I think, come the Ashes. He's regarded in the Australian team. Whenever people talk about David Warner from the Australian team, they speak highly of him. So he'll definitely be there. And probably the coaching staff and the hierarchy have said the same thing as well. So he'll definitely be there on the plane to England. But anyway, that's not until a few months away anyway. So a lot can happen from now until June, and then July, August when the Ashes happen. So it is a wait and see on that. I used to say, Jihan, did you read Ollie Robinson's comments that they're going to give Australia a real hiding? I didn't see that, Jihan. Is that what he said? Okay, well, obviously England are full of confidence at the moment with the way they're playing at the moment with Bazball and all that hype. I think the important thing is for Australia is not to really get carried away with that. I think just go to England, not really get worked up in the whole Bazball sort of philosophy or get caught up in that. Just play to your strengths. And, England will create chances for Australia. They'll create 20 chances. Australia will get opportunities to take wickets. England will throw the bat at everything, play positively, lose wickets in a heap and have a batting collapse or whatever. But it's definitely going to be an interesting series because the way England are playing at the moment. If England go on to lose the series, then it will be another story. And then people would say, oh, is Bazball really worth it? Because, this is a big Ashes series. We haven't won the Ashes for a while, since 2015. Is it really worth it to play this way and not really deliver? So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But, you expect that from England, of course. You expect those fighting words from Robinson. So it'll be an interesting series. I'm looking forward to it. And we've seen some wonderful Ashes moments over the years, and probably we'll see another one in this series. I think we're going to see some pretty spectacular stuff. So I can't wait for the Ashes, of course. Not too far away, in a few months. But, you expect that from, people from England, of course, obviously. So I'm not surprised if he made those comments, Jihan. And I don't think we all shouldn't be surprised anyway, because, when it's an Ashes series, Ashes year, you always see those fighting words in the media and players saying those things. So be interesting to see what happens come the Ashes in June, July, August. John, you say hopefully the long break will get the team refreshed, fit and hungry. They'll be motivated, John. They'll be committed. I think they'll be eager to tick off the WTC, of course. And I think for some of the players like Smith, Warner, players who are coming towards the end of their career, it's probably going to be their last tour of England anyway. So they would like to win the Ashes in England, because Australia haven't won the Ashes in England outright since 2001. So it was a little bit disappointing to not finish off the job in the last series. But it was a good achievement to do that, because given the tour that happened 4 years prior to that, 2015 was a little bit of a disaster, especially when Australia got bowled out for 60 odd at Trent Bridge. That still gives me nightmares. And Stuart Broad taking 8 wickets. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. But they'll be determined. They'll be hoping to tick those off the list and hopefully finish off this year on a winning note. It was a bit disappointing what happened in India, but they'll take a lot of learnings from that. And I think we've already discussed that at length going into the next tour in 4 years' time. Hopefully get better and hopefully win a series in India. So the team will be very motivated to try and bounce back and really, tick those boxes on their list of achievements. And hopefully they do. Yesterday, Jihan, do you think Australia should set attacking fields and maybe tempt them outside off stump because England won't hold back? Well, I think they should. It depends what Pat Cummins wants to do. Depends what the team's strategy is. I think they'll create chances anyway. So, if you set attacking fields and you have fielders in catching positions or you have fielders defending in defensive positions, you can definitely, create some chances. You can definitely put England under some pressure. As we know, England won't hold back. They'll play their brand of cricket, which is refreshing, which is rejuvenating Test cricket in some sort of way, making it popular again. So I think for Australia, I think it's just about trying to do the basics. I think just set, whatever fields you want, attacking or defensive, but, sort of play to your strengths and hope that England will create chances for you, because they'll definitely do that. They'll definitely create chances. They'll definitely create all of those opportunities to take 20 wickets for Australia. So it is going to be an interesting series. Yesterday, Gian, England's standard move when they lose is to prepare a green seamer and hope they win the toss. After their huge first loss at Lords in 2015 by 400 runs, Alistair Cook asked for an English pitch. Then Trent Bridge happened. Yeah, it did. That was a real green top in Nottingham. Stuart Broad had the ball swinging around corners and took eight wickets, and Australia were bowled out for 60. Still gives me nightmares to this day. That was a terrible, terrible series in 2015. So it will depend on what sort of surfaces they're preparing as well. So we may see something probably similar to what we saw last English summer. The pitches weren't really, they were dry. It was a hot summer in England, so that's understandable. They were dry. They weren't really, had a bit in the surface. They were dry. They were pretty good for batting, as we saw in the last English summer. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of pitches they do prepare for that series. But obviously, pitches, that's always been a talking point in Test cricket especially. Over the last few weeks, people have had their say. Just say, Jihan, you couldn't tell what was the pitch and what was the outfield. No, you couldn't. It was a dark green strip, and a similar thing in New Zealand as well. Whenever you see Test matches in New Zealand, they always prepare green tops, and you can't really tell it from the rest of the square or the rest of the outfield. So that's the thing. Pitches, they always create a debate. And they always do. And, it's an interesting debate to have because the pitch is pretty much the main factor which will decide which way a game of cricket will go. And we've had that conversation in depth over the last few weeks during this India series with Australia. Pitches have been talked about. They've been discussed. People not happy, people happy with it. So it's always created debate, pitches, over the years in the game's history. But I think the big difference between now and yesteryear, especially in the older generations when they played on uncovered pitches, it was a contest. You didn't have sort of the same talk or speak that you have these days. Back then, they played on uncovered pitches, didn't really care much about player safety, and sort of was left up to the elements, and the players had to really be on their game, especially if it rained a bit, and then you were caught on a sticky wicket or a wet dog, as they used to say. So you had to be careful of that. So I think if players played in that era, like they do, the current group of players in this generation, if they played in that era where they didn't play on uncovered pitches, where they played on uncovered pitches, I think they would have struggled a bit because it was a different kettle of fish back then. So that's an interesting discussion point to have. Dark Knight. Thanks for your question. Easy on the spam. I did see your comment. So just hold back on the spam there. You say, do you think due to too much T20 cricket, players lost their temperament in ODI cricket? Well, probably it's a different. Well, you're batting for a longer period. So in T20 cricket, you're batting for 20 overs, and you have a short span of time. And yeah, it does come in a little bit. Players do struggle to play the long innings, especially in Test cricket. When you come from T20 cricket to Test cricket, you do struggle to play and adjust to a long innings and trying to construct an innings. So it has affected their temperament a little bit. So maybe with Australia today, with the shots they played, sort of maybe reflected that sort of T20 mentality in a way. And they'll be disappointed with the shots they played. So it wasn't really their best performance today, Australia. They'll be disappointed by that. Hope that's answered your question, Dark Knight. John says maybe not use a roller between innings. You could do that. You could do that. Well, certainly in the old days, you used to use a roller, but you didn't cover the pitch. So, but it would be interesting. It would be interesting to see how the players of today would play on those pitches. Obviously, the game was vastly different back then to now, but I think they would struggle a little bit. Pitches today are quite uniformed. They're pretty much across the world. They're different in some conditions, of course, but they're pretty much unified, especially in one-day cricket, good for batting, not much for the bowlers. Test cricket, you obviously have that balance between bat and ball, but then we've seen in recent test matches that swung too much in favour of one or the other. So it is a very heavy discussion point, the pitch, but it's something that's never going to be perfect. And it's always going to be a big discussion point in the game with the pitches. But it'd be interesting to see how do we approach standards in terms of pitches? What makes a good pitch? Are we overcomplicating it or something like that? So it'll be interesting. That's an interesting discussion point to have. And a lot of people have offered their opinions and what their ideas to try and fix it. Jihan, you say probably Mitchell Marsh pretty much played a T20 innings today. He did. He was swinging at everything. That's the thing, that's sort of the thing, really, that T20 mentality. At times, you can probably get a bit carried away with that, and that's sort of what happened with Mitchell Marsh today. He needed to knock the ball on the gaps a little bit more, rotate the strike. He didn't need to hit every ball out of the park for 6. That's what he was doing. And he connected some pretty good shots today. He hit some pretty good shots, but, he didn't really do it smartly enough. He could have been a little bit smarter with his innings today. So I would agree with that, Jihan. Yes, to say maybe it's harder to rotate the strike in the middle now because there's more fielders in the circle. Yet that too, because you have... especially in the different power plays, especially after the first 10 overs, you have more fielders inside the 30-yard circle. So very hard to rotate the strike. You have to go hit over the top where there's gaps. So that could be one factor as well. Yes, to say, Jihan, more reward for bigger shots in the middle, but also more risk. Yep, absolutely. John says, couldn't have an uncovered pitch in Sydney. Ball would just disappeared into... the marsh. Well, that's the thing now, because obviously back in those days, yeah, a vastly different era, different time, different period. We've uncovered pictures, but they were interesting. I'm just trying to think, when was the first time we used covers? I think that's an interesting question to look up. When was the first period of time that we used covers? I think they even used covers back in the day as well. Well, they did play on matting pitches for a bit. Mainly Pakistan played on matting pitches back in the day. It's a very interesting story, as I mentioned in our historical series episode, part number 2. It was a very interesting story about how Richie Benaud and Sam Loxton, team manager, brought about an end to matting pitches in Pakistan. Because after that test match in 1959 that Australia played, Pakistan didn't play on matting pitches after that. So that's another relic of the game as well. John says 60s, I guess. Yeah, probably. It's interesting. I may need to do some research on that. I do like looking up some interesting facts in the game's history. Jihan says, did you see CFA's Border Gavaskar Trophy after 3 wickets? Gabe think Australia won the series. That annoyed all the Indian fans and supporters. Yeah, I did, Jihan. I did watch our 3 wickets that Nick and Gabe did, and at the end of the day, it says 2-1 in the scoreboard to India, and they probably deserve to win the series because they played better in the first 2 test matches than Australia. But it was a good review from Nick and Gabe. They're getting better. They, keep improving as cricket watchers and followers. And you would say pundits now and experts. So, yeah, it was a good review. Good to see our 3 wickets back. And I left a comment there offering my thoughts. But, yeah, it was quite interesting to hear their thoughts on the series. But, Australia had a lot of opportunities, but they didn't quite win those opportunities. They didn't quite capitalize on them. So that's where Australia went a little bit wrong in the series. But plenty of positives, like Khawaja Green scoring centuries, Nathan Lyon bowling superbly as he always has, Todd Murphy bowled well, and Matt Kuderman did well as well. He got a 5-wicket haul. So there was positives for Australia in the series. It was a tough series, but positives and some learnings to take out of it as well. Alrighty then, the second innings is about to begin. And you would think it's going to be an easy run chase for India. They need 189 to win. Australia were bowled out for 188. And we're going to get started with the Indian innings. It's going to be some fireworks, you would think. Shubman Gill's in the best form of his career. And he scored a double century recently against New Zealand. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that was a few months ago in that ODI series that India played against New Zealand in India. And Shubman Gill joining the list of batters to score double centuries in ODI cricket. Imperious King, hello. Hope you're well. Thanks for joining us. Jihan says, I think I heard something about when they went to Pakistan, they used to stretch out the matting to make it easier to bat when Pakistan were batting, then adjusted it for when Australia batted. You are 100% correct, Jihan. Absolutely 100%. And I did mention in the historical series, part number 2, 1959, the Australian team employed Lindsay Klein. Now, Lindsay Klein was a left-arm spinner from Victoria, played for Australia for a little bit. He was one of the players that got ill on the Indian tour. He picked up hepatitis towards the back end of the tour, had to go home. But when they were in Pakistan, the team employed Lindsay Klein to go out before the test match, before a day's play, to make sure the mat was stretched taut, to make sure there was no creases, no depressions, to make sure it was nice and flat. And he was the auxiliary groundsman for the Australian team. And it was quite interesting reading Richie Benaud's recounts of that tour, and especially with Lindsay Klein being the auxiliary groundsman for Australia. And Lindsay Klein was 12th man anyway, so he wasn't playing that first test that he was doing that. But you are 100% correct there, Jihan. That's what happened. And, Australia were able to win that 59 series because Richie Benaud was a wonderful thinker, and he was a forward thinker, and he was proactive. And Australia prepared on matching pitches up in Brisbane at the Gabba during an exhibition game that Australia played before they went to Pakistan and India for that tour. Richie Benaud said to the groundsman during that exhibition game, which was to celebrate Queensland's centenary, and Richie said to the groundsman at the Gabba, he said, "Can you prepare us some canvas square matting on the outfield?" And because, we want to prepare on those types of wickets because we're going to face that in Pakistan. So every morning of the exhibition game, which was a Richie Benaud 11 versus a Ray Lindwall 11, before the match started, the Australian Test squad that was a part of the tour to Pakistan and India would play on those matching pitches in Brisbane on the outfield, and we'll prepare. And that's how Australia won that series in 59. After what happened in 56, where they were, defeated by Fazal Mahmood, who took 13 wickets on the mat in that one-off test in 56. So Richie Benaud thought, okay, we don't want this to happen again. So they prepared, and they were able to win the series 2-0 in the best of three. The last test was a draw, and that's where President Dwight D. Eisenhower, the US president, was there. And he's the only president in cricket history to watch a game of cricket from the United States. So that's an interesting fact. He was there with his Pakistan counterpart. And I talked about that with Neil Robinson from the MCC in Lords, where we talked about the historical aspects of Lords. We did mention that. And Neil said we do have a bit of a photo of that in the museum of President Eisenhower meeting the players with Pakistan and Australia. So that's what happened. So you're 100% right there, Jihan. So that's what happened. And obviously, just finishing off on that, the last test match they played on the mat, I think it was in Lahore or Karachi, one of the two, where they played that last test. And, Richie Benaud and Sam Loxton, who was team manager, was able to convince the Pakistan president and the Pakistan cricket board to stop playing on Koya matting, or Kaya matting, as they used to play on there. And from that moment on, Test cricket in Pakistan was never played on matting pitches ever again. And you can read up that. Richie Benaud and Sam Loxton had a role to play in that. So it's quite an interesting story looking back at that, seeing what happened there. As India off the mark in their second innings, Shubman Gill, he's in good touch. High score of 208. He got that double century against New Zealand recently. So India will be looking to finish this off quickly. Yes, to say, Gian, that's interesting. The other day I had a thought about having a neutral pitch curator come in to oversee and lead the test pitch preparation to stop all the pitch doctoring antics we saw in the tests. Yeah, that has been talked about. A lot of people have raised that issue and talked about that. I'm not sure if that will work. I don't think many cricket boards would agree to that, but it's definitely one solution that's being talked about. But then who are you going to supply the groundsman or the ground staff or the curator? Where's he going to come from? Is he going to come from the ICC, or is he going to come from Australia? Or, that's the thing, really. When you're taking a neutral curator to a different country, do they know the conditions? Do they know how things, how does the grass grow? How does, everything work out? So there's a lot of areas to iron out in that sort of idea that you raised there, Jihan. But it would be an interesting point to see how that will work out if it does eventually work out. I don't think they'll do probably won't go down that route of having neutral curators. I don't think they'll do that, as India are none for two after the first over, and 189 is the target for India to win. Mitchell Starc to continue. Left arm quick. He's in now to Gill, who drives to the fielder at mid-off. No run. John, you say always thought the matting was koya, which is coconut fiber, not canvas. It was in Pakistan, John, but obviously in Australia, they didn't have koya matting, obviously. So they had to get a bit of canvas sheets to do that. Richie Benaud talks about that in his book. He said it was close enough to sort of resembling the conditions in Pakistan, but they didn't have koya matting. They did play on koya matting, but they didn't have koya matting when Richie Benaud suggested the idea of playing on matting pitches up there in Brisbane. So all they did was just grab a bit of canvas, and that sort of did the trick, really. So they played on koya matting in that Pakistan series. But for the purposes of that preparation for the Australian team, they had to play on canvas sort of matting because they didn't have koya matting. That's what Richie Benaud says in his book when he was talking about that and talking about that tour in 1959 to Pakistan and eventually on to India. You say, John, think I hit it. It entered when you mentioned koya. Yeah, so they played on koya matting in Pakistan. But as I mentioned before, in Australia, they didn't have koya matting, so they had to play on canvas for the purposes of that preparation. So it was near enough to conditions. Yes, to say, Jihan, similar concept to neutral umpires, I guess, but curators would need experience in all countries they oversaw. Yeah, that's the thing. Obviously, with neutral umpires, it's, that's not a big deal, obviously, because umpiring is a specialized skill and you don't really need to have experience. Obviously, it's nice to have experience before in that country. So neutral umpiring in that it works well. Whereas with curators, you gotta understand the conditions and how things operate and, how fast the grass grows, when's the rainy season, when's the dry season, does it get hot, does it get cold? So that's going to take a lot of work if we do go down that route. So there's a lot of issues and a lot of things that we need to iron out if we do go down the route of neutral curators of the ICC. I think Jared Kimber, on one of his videos I watched, Jihan, when he was doing a Q&A, I think one of the people who were watching asked him that question. And I think he said the same thing. I don't think it will quite work out. But an interesting discussion point. There's Mitchell Starc. Now that he's gone. Yes, Mitchell Starc has got the first wicket. That is the end of Ishan Kishan. He's gone, LBW, plumb in front, you would think. The umpire raised his finger. And Australia have got the first wicket. Ishan Kishan has reviewed it, but it looked pretty good. Right in front of the crease. Right in front of the stumps, I should say. And you would think that he should be on his way here. Now that's classical Mitchell Starc bowling there, especially to a left-hander, swinging the ball back into the pads from left arm around the wicket. And I don't think he's hit it. It's hit him above the knee roll. But he was in front of the stumps. Looked pretty good. The line was good. Whether or not it was height, whether or not it's going to go over the top. It did hit him on the knee roll, but the bounce and the height will be the question here. So it's pitched in line, impact in line, wickets. Hitting, he's gone. Kishan has gone. That's hitting the top of middle stump. That is the end of his innings. He's gone. India have lost their first wicket. They're 1 for 5. It's a good start from Australia. They needed to take an early wicket or two. Ishan Kishan has to go. He's gone for 3. It's 1 for 5. Jihan says, I played a few matches on AstroTurf when I was a kid. Never liked it, though, because they just died when it rained. Yeah, I've played on AstroTurf as well. And it is very different, obviously. So it is a different surface when you play on AstroTurf compared to turf. But yeah, everyone's played on AstroTurf sometime in their cricketing journey. Virat Kohli arrives at the crease. He's had a pretty good last test match, scoring that big 180, breaking the drought of test centuries. And he'll be hoping to get a few runs in this first ODI. You say, Jihan, that was Storners, wasn't it? No, it wasn't. Jihan, it was Mitchell Starc who bowled that. What? Sorry, my mistake. Sorry. Yeah, it was Marcus Stoinis. My mistake. You are correct there, Jihan. Sorry, it was Marcus Stoinis who got that wicket. For some reason, I thought it was Mitchell Starc, but he's bowling this over here. So, my mistake there. Yeah, it was Marcus Stoinis. Yep. Let me just check that again, just to be sure. On the scorecard, but I'm pretty sure it was Marcus Stoinis. For some reason, I thought it was Mitchell Starc, but he's bowling this over. Yes, it was Marcus Stoinis. My mistake. I didn't see his name on the back of his shirt there. I thought it was Mitchell Starc for some reason. But anyway, Marcus Stoinis got the first wicket. And Mitchell Starc will be hoping to get the second wicket. So 1 for 5 for India after 2 overs, chasing 189. And Australia need early wickets. That's the only way they're going to win this game, is to bowl India out. And for India, they just need one good partnership, maybe 2. And that will pretty much get them over the line and win this game. Now then, was that a chance? That probably, it was. Inglis diving in front of first slip. And he put the catch down. That's what Australia don't need. And then next ball, Shubman Gill dispatches Mitchell Starc through the covers for 4 with authority. That's what he did in the test match in Ahmedabad. You give him some width outside off stump, he's just going to play through the covers nicely. And that's what he did there. It's a very good shot. 4 runs. And Australia can't afford to be dropping catches. There's a chance. Mitchell Starc creating that chance, but it wasn't taken by the keeper in Inglis. So Starc in again to Gill. And this one outside off stump, Gill doesn't time it, chops it into the ground for no run. Jihan says, yeah, I thought it was. A bit weird for Starc to bowl in-swiggers from around the wicket. Yeah, well, that was the thing, because I thought it was, Mitchell Starc for some reason bowling that angle. But it was Marcus Stoinis. No, I just didn't quite see Marcus Stoinis' name. I thought it was Mitchell Starc for some reason. But anyway, that's all good there. Jihan says, with the new ball. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Obviously, with Australia today, they've got some all-rounders in the side. So obviously, with no Pat Cummins, obviously, no Josh Hazlewood. So it's a different new ball opening partnership with the ball for Australia today. You've got Mitchell Starc and then you've got Marcus Stoinis. So that's the thing with Australia today. They are a bit light on their bowling today a little bit, given their combination with their team today. But that's the team they've gone in with. So just having a look, the last chance there for Inglis didn't quite stick in the gloves. But he had a pretty good Marsh One Day Cup final, Josh Inglis. He scored a very impressive century. Starc, and again, this one outside off stump, left by Kohli for no run. It's the end of the over. It's 1 for 10 after 3. So India, just one good partnership will do the trick. chasing 189. Australia need wickets. They've already got one. Can they pick up the other 9? Jihan says, I did not expect Stoinis to take the new ball. I thought it will be Abbott. Yeah, well, he's in the side today, Sean Abbott. But they've gone with Marcus Stoinis, so that's what Australia have decided to do. That's what Steve Smith decided to do. So it is quite interesting to see how Australia's bowling will go given their combination today. As Stoinis continues, this time to Gill. This one full, and Gill works it to mid-on for no run. And it's a dot ball, so Australia pretty much going well. Good start with the ball, got the early wicket. John, he hasn't, you say silly question, has Wade retired now? No, he hasn't. I don't think he's retired officially. So he hasn't retired yet, Wade. So he's still playing for Australia. There's nothing that's said or anything like that. Stoinis in to Gill, outside edge, just past the fielder at slip. And it will go down to third man for a single. I think it was Steve Smith there, just out of reach of his right hand. And Shubman Gill was taking some very good catches in the slips today. Yeah, Steve Smith at second slip, Mitchell Marsh at first. That one just wide of Steve Smith. Oh, got a fingertip on that to his right hand. And couldn't connect with the catch. Yeah, just got his fingertips onto the ball there. So we have a look on the replay. He's taken some very good catches, Steve Smith at slip. This one outside off stump and left by Curly, sees it through to the keeper. So to answer your question there, John, he hasn't retired as yet. And there's nothing to suggest that he's retired yet at the moment. So no one's heard anything. Nothing's been said. So he's pretty much still playing for Australia at the moment. So, but it will be interesting to see if he does retire, Wade, or keeps playing on. He may play on next year for the T20 World Cup in the West Indies and the USA. As Stoinis in, this one defended by Curly to mid-on, and there's no run. So it will be interesting to see what he does. But a very handy player, Matthew Wade, and that 2021 T20 World Cup in the UAE, especially in that semi-final against Pakistan, was a very good innings from him, very good game. Helped Australia win that game, then go on to win the title. As Marcus Stoinis got the early breakthrough today. Stoinis in to Curly, who drives back down the ground, past mid-off for 4. And that was a little bit too full from Marcus Stoinis. And Curly was able to drive comfortably down the ground. And he's off the mark, Virat Curly, with a boundary. Yeah, good connection. Very good shot from Virat Curly. Very quality player. He's had a pretty good career in one-day cricket, over 10,000 runs, averaging 50, which is a pretty good career. And this one is left by Curly to the keeper, and there's no run. It's the end of the over, 1 for 15 after 4. India need 189 to win. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll be here for a little while yet of the Indian reply in terms of the run chase. And thanks for joining us, everyone. It's good to see everyone enjoying some cricket and offering their thoughts on the game. India 1 for 15, chasing 189 to win. Mitchell Starc will continue and bowl the 5th over of this run chase as we're starting to get into the nighttime period, evening time in India. And that one worked onto the offside from Gill, who will pick up a single and moves on to 9. 1 for 16. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Make sure you do like, share, comment, subscribe to the podcast, to the stream. Really does help. And thank you, everyone, once again for helping us to get to 600 subscribers. It's fantastic to reach that milestone, and thank you, everyone, for helping us reach that milestone. Stark into Curly. This one swinging back into Curly's pads. He got a massive inside edge. And good bowling there from Stark. Just swinging this ball back into Curly. Pitching, just swinging, just a big inside edge onto the pads. So Mitchell Stark threatening, as always. So Stark. Yet again to Curly. This one trapped him on his pads. There's an appeal from Stark. Probably going down the leg side. Mitchell Stark asking for a review. Steve Smith saying, did it go down the leg side? It probably did. But Mitchell Stark looking threatening. Thanks, everyone, for joining us for today's watch-along live stream with this first ODI between Australia and India from the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe, do all those good things. Really does help the channel in terms of the podcast as well. Dot ball again from Stark. Good delivery. Building pressure on Curly. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And India only need 189 to win. You would think that it's probably a done conclusion. But funny things have happened in cricket, and Australia will be looking to wrap it up if they can. They can pick up a few more wickets and put a little bit of pressure on India. Stark into Curly. Traps him on the pads. It's out, LBW. The finger has been raised by the umpire. And Curly walks off. He's not thinking about reviewing the decision. He walks off. Mitchell Stark's got the second wicket. India are 2 for 16. Curly's gone. And Stark has struck. Well, that's what Australia needed. Needed wickets. And this one just swinging back in from Stark down the line. Trapped Curly in front. Curly pretty much played around his front pad. Trapped in front, LBW. Stark got the wicket. That is the end of Curly. And India have lost their second wicket. Curly gone for 4. It's 2 for 16 for India. Very good start from Australia. A couple of early wickets as Suryakumar Yadav arrives to the middle. And he will join Shubman Gill, who's at the non-strikers end on 9. On ball left of the 5th over. And Suryakumar Yadav about to take strike to Mitchell Stark, and hopefully it will get the breakthrough. Again, Mitchell Stark has already got the second breakthrough. Australia all-out attack here because they need wickets. They got bowled out for 188. That's probably not going to be a challenging score, you would think, but if they can pick up wickets at regular intervals, which can happen, they can definitely put India on the back burner. And already they've picked up 2 wickets. 3 slips for Stark. He's bowling left arm over the wicket to Suryakumar Yadav, the right-hander. There's 3 slips in play. Stark in now to Suryakumar Yadav. Has swung back in, trapped him on the pads. There's an appeal for LBW. Stark looks convinced. He's getting the ball to swing a bit here, Mitchell Stark. Now then, Smith will ask him, what do you reckon? Go upstairs for a review. Was it high? Have they gone upstairs for the review? They have. It was given not out. Mitchell Stark getting this new ball to swing. John says, is it just me or Stark is getting more movement off the seam than in the air? That was a pretty good peel to get rid of Curly. Yeah, it was. He's getting a bit of shape here, John, and he's getting that ball to just tail into the right-hander in Suryakumar Yadav, and also Curly as well. This one trapped him on the pad here, Suryakumar Yadav, on the back foot, high on his thigh, above the knee roll. There's no bat. There's a flat line on ultra edge. The question is whether or not it was height. Now then, is this the third wicket for Australia? It is! It's the third wicket! Stark has got 2 on the over. Suryakumar Yadav is gone. India are 3 for 16. And umpire Nitin Meton will have to overturn his decision. What a start from Australia. They've got India 3 for 16. They're only chasing 189. Well, all of a sudden, this game has come to life. It's 1 for 16 after 5. Suryakumar Yadav is gone. LBW, Mitchell Stark has picked up 2 wickets in the over. Suryakumar Yadav gone for a golden duck. It's 3 for 16, and Australia looking to get onto the attack on the front foot, looking to pick up wickets and looking to put India under pressure. That's what they've done here. And Mitchell Stark getting some good movement off the pitch and off the seam as well. Mitchell Stark up and about. He's got the first few wickets for Australia. He's got a couple. John says, I would have that. Not out 2. Well, it was hitting the stumps on review, and he's got to go, Suryakumar Yadav. And it's going to be Sean Abbott into the attack. And he'll be bowling his first over to Shubman Gill. He will be on strike. Abbott into Gill. This one beats his outside edge. And already Sean Abbott getting some good results off his first ball of his first over of his spell. Good line, good length. That one just beating Shubman Gill past his outside edge. Nearly got the outside edge there, Sean Abbott. He's done pretty well over the last few summers, Sean Abbott. And he's back in the Australian side. As Abbott's in again to Gill. This one left outside off stump from Gill, and there's no run. So India, 3 for 16. All of a sudden, under a little bit of pressure. Jihan says Australia could have done this, done with this grass covering during the Test series. Well, the ball is swinging a little bit. It's definitely moving and swinging off the seam a little bit. Mitchell Stark getting some good shape. And that's what Mitchell Stark can do. Once he gets that shape, once he gets that swing happening, he can be dangerous. And I won't be surprised if he bowls another over here because Australia need wickets and they'll be on the attack. That was a good delivery to get rid of Suryakumar Yadav. Just trapped on the crease, hit him on the back foot, on the back thigh, and the umpire gave it not out because of height. And it was clearly hitting that off stump, top of off stump. Good bowling from Stark, and the Australians are cock a hoop. And Abbott's in. And this one, it's a full delivery outside off stump. Gill drives him through the covers for 4. Bit of a loose delivery from Abbott. Sumit says, oh no, I was happy to see Australia out 187, but India 3 down. I'm scared now. Well, yes, it's all of a sudden this match has come to life. Things are happening. Not easy for India at the moment. It's been good bowling from Australia. And if Australia had a few more runs, Abbott in to Gill. This one defended to Travis Head at mid-on for a dot ball. And Australia building the pressure on India. Jihan says that was a beauty to get Yadav. Reminded me of Nathan Bracken getting Sehwag and Laxman back in 2003. Yeah, it was a good delivery from Stark. That's what he can do. That bit of shape into the right-handers, and he can swing it in and just get it to straighten a bit. He's always dangerous, Stark, and that was a good delivery to get rid of Yadav. Abbott into Gill. This one traps him on the pads. He's given out. He's gone. Shubman Gill is now gone, LBW. Well, oh well. As Bill Laurie say, it's all happening here at the Wankhede Stadium. And it's certainly all happening. Australia getting the ball to move and talk. Well then. Sean Abbott in on the action. He's appealed for LBW and the umpire agreed. He raised his finger. And India have reviewed it straight away. But Sean Abbott and the Australians were convinced. It looked pretty good. Let's have a look on the replay on the review. Ooh. Yeah, the ball's close to the outside edge. Whether or not it was a flat line, did he hit it? No, he hasn't hit it. It's pad first. It's hit him above the knee roll. Whether or not it was in line with the stumps, did it impact outside the line, maybe in line? Well, looking at that front on with the ultra edge, it looked pretty good. It was in line, and it's missing the stumps, so it's a bit high. So good review from India. That one just going over the top of the bails, and the umpire will have to overturn his decision, and he will have to say not out. And it's a good over from Abbott. He got the wicket of he nearly got the wicket there, but it was a good over nonetheless from Abbott. And that last delivery was pretty good. Unfortunately, didn't quite get the wicket. It was just high. And India 3 down for 20 after 6 overs, and they're getting the ball to talk, move, and all things are happening at the moment. So not going to be easy for India. They're in a bit of a pickle and under pressure slightly. Mitchell Stark to continue. He's got 2 for 8 from 3 overs. Sumit says, yeah, it's scary. Well, Australia definitely got their tails up. That's what we need to see from them if they are going to win this match. Jihan says, I thought that was out straight away. Back leg, met on, asleep again. Well, Mitchell Stark's on a hat trick. And he got 2 wickets and 2 balls. So he's on a hat trick. First ball of his next over. He's into KL Rahul. This one driven outside off stump from KL Rahul. Pass mid-off for 4. And that's a nice way to get off the mark from KL Rahul, just to ease the pressure slightly on India. That's a much-needed boundary, but I don't blame Mitchell Stark for bowling that line of length. He's getting the ball to swing, and he's looking for wickets. Just that one, just a little bit on the fuller side. But, if you want to get wickets, well, you've got to be prepared to be driven through the covers. And that's what happened there. But good shot from Rahul. And India, 3 for 24. Here we go. Stark in to Rahul. This one defended for no run by Rahul. John says, think Abbott needs to get closer to the stumps in his delivery. Well, that last ball for the last over was pretty good. And unfortunately, that was just going over the top of the stumps, really, just for height. So in the end, a good decision by India to review that LBW decision. And India under a bit of pressure here. 3 down for 24. Into the 7th over. Stark now into Rahul. This one down the leg side. Good take from Inglis. And it's going to be a wide. And an extra run for India onto their total. Jihan says there won't be any grass on the next 2 pitches. Yesterday, Jihan Gill was on the front foot. That LBW shout, fair enough. It was going over the top. Yeah, just a little bit high there. So good use of the DRS there for India. If Shubman Gill didn't review that, then It would have been a difficult situation for India being 4 down and obviously not going upstairs for that review. Stark in again to Rahul. This one defended. There's no run. But all of a sudden, this match has come to life. It's we thought it was going to be straightforward for India, but that hasn't been the case. And already, Australia have picked up these key wickets that they needed to really put India under pressure here. Jihan, you say, how many reviews are there? It used to be only 1 in ODIs, didn't it? Well, you have 2 reviews now in one-day cricket. It did used to be 1, I think, but then they added an extra 1, I think. So it's 2 reviews now, Jihan, in one-day cricket. 3 for test matches, 1 for T20s. So that's the number of reviews that they have now. So 2 reviews in ODIs, that's all you get. And if you're not using them wisely, then, well, you got to use them wisely. You can't waste them. We see so many teams just burn reviews for the sake of it. Not really thinking about the decision and why was it given out or not out. That one's tucked away around the corner down to fine leg. Single there from Rahul. Australia on the attack, picking up wickets early if they can. Good crowd in at the Wankhede, watching a very interesting match of one-day cricket. It's been pretty good from India to bowl Australia out for 188, but in a bit of difficulty chasing the total or chasing the target because Australia bowled really well. That's a single to end the over from India. It's the end of the over, 3 for 27 after 7. So India starting to wrestle some momentum back. 3 for 27 after 7. 189 for India to win. Jihan says, if Australia got 250, they'll be on top. Yeah, that would be the thing, isn't it? How many runs that Australia would have got if it wasn't for those collapses. So if they got 250, then they would have been in a strong position at the moment. But seeing that India need 189, it's not really going to be, all that difficult for India. You would think one good partnership will pretty much get the result here. Now, Rahul's getting some treatment, some stretches on his neck. I think his back's playing up a little bit. He's asked the physio to come out and get some treatment. So Sean Abbott will continue. Australia 3 for 27. So as Rahul gets some treatment, I think that's a perfect opportunity to ask some umpiring questions. So we have some umpiring questions for everyone to have a bit of a guess. Sort of test your knowledge on the laws of the game. So we have some umpiring questions here for everyone. Just to test your knowledge on the laws of the game, really. So that's the first umpiring question. Question number 1. And Rahul getting some treatment for his neck and his back. Get some stretches there. So, top ball from Abbott, first ball of his over. All right, we'll get to the umpiring questions here. Test your knowledge on the laws of the game and put yourself in the umpire situation. What would you do in these conundrums, which would happen in a game of cricket? Some of them happen very rarely, others happen maybe on a regular basis. As Sean Abbott continues, this one pushed onto the offside for a single from Gill. So we've got the first question here. A batsman gives a faint edge to the last ball before lunch, which is caught by the wicketkeeper. Nobody appeals, but the batsman walks immediately. When the fielders realise the batsman's act of sportsmanship, they applaud, but still do not appeal. And both batsmen and the fielders disappear into the pavilion. The captain of the batting side, not pleased with his teammates' sporting behaviour, insists he returns to the crease after lunch, claiming that a batsman can only be out on appeal. Is he right? As Abbott, and again to Rahul, who defends to mid-off, no run. So that's the first umpiring question. For the stream, we've got a few more after this. So we've got 6 questions in total. So this is question 1 of 6. So what would you do in that situation as an umpire? We'll reveal the answer in a few deliveries. And Abbott getting the outside edge of Rahul's bat, but it's just falling short of Smith at slip. And there is no run. John says, I'll default to don't ask, don't get. Well, that's the case. If you don't appeal, you don't if you don't ask, you don't get. And especially in cricket, if you don't appeal, we've seen it many times where teams haven't appealed, and unfortunately, a wicket has gone begging. Another dot ball again from Abbott. Yes, say John, or in doubt, dead ball. Well, it's a pretty straightforward one, this one. What would you do in that situation? So in this case, the batter has left the wicket. He thought he hit the ball and he walked off, which is totally fine. Abbott playing a miss from Rahul past his outside edge to win the over. It's the end of the over. It's 3 for 28. So what would you do? What would you do as an umpire in this situation? Would you give the batter out, or we give him not out in this situation? So it's an interesting conundrum, this one, which will start to continue. So what would you do? So we'll just wait for a few more replies to come in or answers. As the lights come on at the Wankhede. India 3 for 28. As Stark continues to Gill. This one defended on the front foot from Gill, and there's no run. All right. So, John, you say, but assuming the umpire called over at lunch, too late, too bad. Well, that's an interesting point that you raised there, John. That's an interesting point because lunch was called. So time was called as well for that session of play. So, all right, we'll reveal the answer. The answer to question 1 is yes, the batting team captain is correct. There are 2 important factors here. A batsman can only be given out on appeal, and here there was no appeal. Also, time had been called, so the session had ended, and everyone left the field to go to lunch. The call of time means nothing further could happen during that period of play. However, the striker should be allowed to resume his innings when play resumes. So the fielding side didn't appeal. The umpire thought, well, they haven't really asked the question. They haven't really appealed. So even though lunch had been called, or time in this instance, therefore the batter who was dismissed is not dismissed and can resume after the interval. So not out is the answer to that one. So question 2. So we have 6 of these umpiring questions. This is question 2 of 6. In a county match, an injured batsman who has a runner hammers the ball through the air directly at the runner, who ducks as the ball hits him and rebounds straight to a fielder who catches the ball and appeals. Is the batsman out? Now, it's interesting when runners are involved. You don't see that these days in international cricket. That one's a wide there from Mitchell Stark. John says, I think I covered all bases. Yeah, very much. In the last question, the batter is not out because the fielding side didn't really appeal. So really it's up to the umpire's discretion in that situation if the fielding side did appeal or not. But question 2. We'll reveal the answer. This one involves a runner, which is not what you see every day in the game these days because runners are not really a thing in international cricket now. But they are in other levels of cricket, of course. And it does get complicated when a runner's involved and there's a dismissal and trying to work out who's out. John says, does county matches still allow runners? I'm not sure. Well, this is a county match, so it's as this one's an outside edge through the slips for 4, and Gill will pick up another boundary. So India starting to get the runs now, and Australia still searching for wickets. Well, that's an interesting question, John. Depends on the playing conditions. So I don't think there's runners allowed. Obviously, in international cricket, they're not allowed anymore. So it depends in the playing conditions of your competition, whether you have runners or not. I think in Sheffield Shield cricket, I think in Big Bash, I think in those playing conditions, I think a runner is allowed, but only if you're 9 down, I think. But that's a very good question there. Depends on playing conditions. So it depends on the playing conditions of that competition. See, in the over, it's 3 for 33 after 9. So India starting to wrestle momentum back. So question 2 of our umpiring question there. If you have any answers or anything, do put them in the chat so we can see if you got them right or not. Testing your knowledge on the laws of the game. Put yourself in these situations as an umpire. Abbott's in to Rahul, traps it on the pads, but they'll scamper through for a leg bye potentially. And the umpire will signal a leg bye. So that's question 2. So let us know what your answer is. What would you do in that situation? Would you give the batsman out? So this is involving a runner, which is complicated sometimes, especially when there's a dismissal involved. John says, okay, I'll assume the batter and the runner are one and the same. So to my mind, it will be the batter hitting the ball into themselves, not touching the ground, so out. That's a very good answer there, John. So yes, so if you know about runners, they are susceptible to all the laws, and they can be given out as normal batters would. This one's a single worked on the leg side by Gill. All right, the answer to question 2 is yes, he is out. The runner is a part of play, and the ball never touched the ground. So the catch is therefore fair. So 100% there, John. You were spot on with that. And yeah, therefore the catch is fair, the batter is out, and the runner is a part of the field of play. Question 3. A batsman who has been hit a number of times on his gloves by a fiery fast bowler is bravely batting on in spite of pain in both hands. When the next ball from the bowler rears up, he takes both hands off the bat. The ball strikes the bat as it falls to the ground and is caught. The fielder appeals. What is your decision? That is question 3. And this one outside off stump by Abbots, left by Rahul. He was thinking about playing that, but he decided to leave it. So question 3 of our umpiring questions for this evening. What is your decision in this situation? India, 3 for 35. And they've wrestled momentum back. And it was a difficult start at the start for them. But they've managed to wrestle the momentum back. Another boundary from Rahul, racing down to third man for 4. It's the end of the 10th over. It is 3 for 39 after 10. That is the end of the first power play for India. And only one good partnership here would help them to reach that score of 189. So question 3, what is your decision? Let us know in the comments before we reveal the answer of this question. $339 India. 10 overs have been completed. So for India, it's all about just trying to get one good partnership here if they can. And then that will pretty much get them over the line. John, you say bat not in contact with the batter, so not out. If he bowled, might be a different story. That's a very good answer there. So we'll reveal the answer to this question. The answer is the batsman is out caught. The fact that he was not actually holding the bat as the ball struck it does not affect your decision. Great fast bowling in that case. So the batter is out caught in that instance. Now, obviously, if the glove is off the bat handle, so a hand not holding the bat, but the ball brushes the glove, then that's a different story. Of course, we've seen that many times in international cricket. because the gloves, when they're in contact with the bat, holding the handle, they are a part of the bat. But in this instance, it doesn't really matter, really. What a catch! What a catch that is from Labuschagne. Gill is gone, outside edge, straight to Labuschagne at point. He's taken a very handy catch. Stark's got the third. India are 4 for 39. Well, this match is still alive, and Australia are pretty much on the charge. Well, Gill, he went to drive on the front foot, got it outside edge, and went straight to Marnus Labuschagne at point, who took a very superb catch, parallel with the ground to his right, to his left, and he's pulled it off. A very good catch. Shubman Gill gone for 20. 4 for 39 for India. John says, okay, so the bat is always in play regardless if the batter is actually holding it. Yes. Yeah. That is correct. Jihan says, what a catch. Yes, what a catch. As Richie Benner say, that's a marvellous catch. Or as Bill Laurie would say, that's a ripper. And it was definitely a ripper of a catch from Marnus Labuschagne. And that's what Australia needed. So Australia still in this game. Not done yet for India. Under a little bit of pressure. They've lost 4 wickets for 39. Hardik Pandya, the captain, comes to the crease. And Australia looking to pick up more wickets. They're on the attack. They have to bowl India out to win this match. And they're doing that nicely now. 4 for 39. It's a good start with the ball. They've got to finish it off. Hardik Pandya can be dangerous. Jihan says, have to stop Pandya's filthy slogging now. And this game could be Australia's game. It could be. It will depend if they can get this wicket. But a very good catch from Marnus Labuschagne as Mitchell Stark's picked up his third wicket. All right, question 4 of the umpiring questions. We've got 2 more after this. As this one glided nicely through point for 4 from Pandya. And Mitchell Stark just straying off his line and length there. Just a little bit too wide of off stump. And 4 runs onto the turtle for India. So question 4 for our umpiring questions. On a windy day, a large piece of sticky paper, probably from a spectator's packed lunch, blows onto the field. The ball from a lofted drive lands on the sticky paper and becomes wrapped up in it. At no time did the ball touch the grass. A fielder picks up the ball, still covered in the sticky paper, struggles to unwrap it, while the batsman crosses for another run. The fielder then appeals for a catch with pieces of the sticky paper still on the ball. What is your decision? That's an unusual one. So let us know your answers and responses to that 4th umpiring question. We've got 2 more after that. Be good to hear your thoughts. Test your knowledge on the laws. As Mitchell Stark continues. 5th ball now of the 11th over. In now to Pandya. This one outside off stump. It's no run. So an interesting question, this one. Not something that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. One of those rarer occasions. But looking at that catch from Marnus Labuschagne, it was a pretty good catch. At point, parallel with the ground. John says, gee, 29 runs between the last 6 wickets. It's India's game to lose. If we could have only fingered the score to 220. Yes. If Australia got 200, 210, 220, it would have been a different story. But they're in this game at the moment. Pressure on India, 4 down for 43. So, we've seen batting collapses. And for Australia, it's just about taking wickets when they can. And it's the end of the over. It's 4 for 43. So, be interesting to see your responses to this umpiring question here. A bit of a different one. Not something that happens every day. So, what would you do if this happened? What decision would you give? We'll reveal the answer in a moment. Give people some time to write in their answers. And as Sean Abbott will continue, he'll be bowling to Rahul. And Abbott, none for 10 from his 3 overs. He's in now to Rahul. Defends this delivery, Rahul, and there's no run. Cameron Green hasn't had a bowl as yet. He may be required. This one defended to Labuschagne a point for no run. John says, question 4, dead ball. You're doing my head in. Well, it makes you think. These questions. It's quite an unusual one. It doesn't happen all the time. But a very good answer there, John. So, all right. The answer is as soon as the ball becomes enmeshed in the paper, you should call and signal dead ball. This means that nothing further can happen and no catch can be awarded. The runs completed plus the run in progress, if the batsmen have crossed, will be awarded to the batting side. So you are correct there, John. It's a dead ball in that situation. So full marks. So we've got 2 more questions to go. And that'll be it for the umpiring questions today. Question 5, in a village match, the 2 captains who are friends asked if they can play 12 aside because both 12th men are very handy batsmen. And it's not in the spirit of village cricket if they don't get an innings. You agree? They also asked that 12 players be allowed to field. Do you permit this? This is another interesting question as well. John, you say I've gone okay so far. Yeah, you have. Pretty good. But let's see what you can do on this one. So Mitchell Starc getting an ice pack on his neck. It's quite a hot day out there in Mumbai today. As he's bowled pretty well, Mitchell Starc, giving Australia an opportunity here. Has it been an easy game for Australia? A bit disappointed in the way they batted, but they're coming back nicely with the ball here. Looking to get wickets, looking to put India under pressure. But one good partnership for India will do it. This one worked off his pads. Rahul, and it will race away to the boundary at square leg. Not quite. It'll pick up 2. And it's the end of the over. End of the over, 4 for 45. After 12. John says, local playing conditions, gentlemen's agreement. All right, we'll reveal the answer, and you're pretty much spot on there, John. You are 100% correct. There are 42 laws that govern the game of cricket at the highest levels, but there are also playing regulations or playing conditions which supersede the laws. These often apply in village matches. The law says that only 11 players should take the field at one time, but that the captains are entitled to field with more. This is clearly a fun match, so with the agreement of both sides, you can allow this increase in team numbers. As Cameron Green will have the ball for the first time today. So 100% correct there, John, with the playing conditions. So pretty much it's a local thing. It's a local league thing, playing conditions. But also in cricket as well, you can have more than 11 players, but only 11 can bat. But you can have more players field, but only 11 batters. So that's another thing to remember as well. So the last question of the umpiring questions today. A fielder in a village match attempts to catch a high ball and falls awkwardly shaken up. He leaves the field and the 12th man takes his place. Later, you notice that the original fielder has returned and having taken a high catch is appealing. The 12th man is still out on the field of play. What action do you take? So what do you do there in terms of the extra fielder, the 12th man in that situation? Top ball from Green, Rahul defends. So what do you do? What do you do in this situation? John, you've said no ball for question 6. That's a possibility. As Green it again to Rahul. He flashes this one outside off stump. It's running away to the deep backward point boundary for 4. The 50 is up for India. And they're 4 down for 50. But only one good partnership will do the trick for India here. All right, we'll reveal the answer to the last question today. And the answer is, this is the case of illegal fielding, and you should immediately call dead ball. Permission should have been sought from the umpires before the fielder re-entered the field of play. In addition, add 5 penalty runs to the batting side. Rule that any runs scored or attempted will count and that the ball will not count in that over. After the match, you should report the offending fielder to the authorities for that league. So there you go. So penalty runs and disallow and also reporting involved in that situation. Green, last ball of his over. This one cut away by Hardik Pandya, just flashed at it. We'll race way down to 3rd man for a single. So it's the end of the over. 452 for India. Slowly picking up the runs. Facing 189 to win. So there we have it. Our umpiring questions today. Thanks everyone for taking part. Just a bit of fun to test your knowledge on the laws of the game. But thanks everyone for joining us. And well, India is just starting to really just get settled now. There's Abbott in now to Pandya, who scampers through for a quick single. John says, extra fielder, in my opinion. In my mind, same as moving the field after the batsman is set. Didn't realise penalty runs would be involved. Yes, because it's unfair play. So under unfair play, you have to award penalty runs in that situation. Penalty runs have always been a part of that, even when fielders have moved or extra fielders on the field and etc. So, yeah, unfair play, penalty runs in that situation there awarded to the batting side because the fielding side have infringed. This one's a single to Rahul. And India 4 for 54. So we'll be here for another over. And then we will pull up stumps for today. So we'll be here for one more over. And we'll be pulling up stumps after that. And see who will turn out victorious in this match. You would think India, with one good partnership here, should do it. But Australia have been good with the ball early on, taking wickets, putting India under some sort of pressure a little bit. So we shall see what happens in the conclusion of this match. 3 balls left to the 14th over, 4 for 54 India. Pandya's on 7. Sean Abbott bowling. This pitch has done a little bit. It's got a bit of grass and balls swung a little bit and seamed. And Australia, if they only had a few extra runs, a few runs to play with, they would have been in a good position here. Abbott in now. This one full on the pads of Hardik Pandya. He just whips it through mid-wicket for 4. Well, India starting to get settled, starting to score runs, and the pressure just starting to slip a little bit from Australia. Nice boundary there for Hardik Pandya. That's a top ball from Abbott. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. We'll be here for one more over. So 1 ball left to the 14th over, and then we'll be here for our last over before we'll pull up stumps and say our farewells and goodbyes. This one, a dot ball to finish from Abbott, last ball of his over. Out of the over, 4 for 58 after 14. There will be drinks as well. And that's our cue to probably end today. Thank you everyone for joining us. Really do appreciate it. And I hope everyone had some fun, and I hope everyone enjoyed talking some cricket. But thanks everyone for joining us. I think that will be it for us. And we'll pull up stumps and call it a day. But you would think that India should go on and win this match. And, at the moment, 4 for 58 at drinks. You think they should go on and win the match and probably take a 1-0 series lead in this series. Hasn't quite gone on plan for Australia today, but if they had enough runs on the board, it would have been a very interesting sort of match at the moment, given that India are under some pressure a little bit. And what could have been for Australia today? But unfortunately, that will probably not turn out to be the case. So it should be an interesting conclusion. You would think India, with this partnership at the moment, should see them home, and they should be able to win for 6 wickets here. John says, here's one for you. I was umpiring a social game. I'm not an umpire, by the way. The bowler changed from over to around without telling me. I no-balled him and copped it. Was I right or wrong? John, you were right. In that situation, the bowler has to tell the umpire which side of the wicket he's bowling. And obviously, so you, as the umpire, can tell the batsman which side the bowler's bowling. Now, if the bowler changes his delivery stride or which side of the wicket he's bowling, then the umpire will have to call a no ball, because that's unfair. And really, that's putting the batsman at a bit of a disadvantage, because you said he was bowling over the wicket and then he's bowling around the wicket without telling you, or so you can't warn the batter. So, I think you made the right call there, John. But of course, players are going to be disgruntled a little bit at those decisions, obviously. It just comes down to, just explaining to the players what that situation was, obviously. And just saying, hey, but obviously use common sense as well. If the bowler forgot to tell you, you say, John, at last vindication. Yeah. Well, it comes down to common sense. If the bowler didn't tell you and he did it on purpose, then you will probably say that, well, that's probably unfair. But if he forgot to tell you and it was a mistake, then you just use common sense there. So it depends on, if the bowler did it on purpose or he did it unintentionally, meaning that he forgot and he just didn't realize. So there's some things that you have to work out there. But obviously, if the bowler doesn't tell the umpire he bowls the opposite direction, opposite side of the wicket, then it's a no ball, because it's unfair play. So you made the right call there, John. You may get a little bit of stick for it, but that happens with players being disgruntled. So as an umpire, you just have to hold your ground and say, well, I've made my decision, and that's what's in the laws. But it can be a little bit daunting in that situation. As Cameron Green will bowl after drinks. We'll do one more over before we have to sign out. And obviously the ODI is different times, of course, different times compared to the test matches in terms of time zones and timings. This one defended onto the offside by Rahul for a dot ball. India 4 for 58. Chasing 189 to win. You would think they should do it easily. You say, John, we all had a beer afterwards, so it was okay. Oh, there you go. There you go. That's all good. Just have a drink after the game and say, it's all good. We'll forget about it and have a drink. So that's all good. But players can be a little bit disgruntled with decisions, especially dealing with that as an umpire. So you just have to try and find a way to negate that and make sure that everyone's on the same page. It can be a little bit daunting, but you sort of train for that, really. This one worked behind square on the leg side for a single by Rahul. And India 4 for 59. So they're slowly but truly closing in on that 189 target. We've got 3 balls left before we all sign out. Thanks, everyone, for joining us once again. And this one going to the boundary for 4. And Hardik Pandya hits the boundary. He moves on to 15. Australia conceding the boundary there. 4 for 63 now, India. They're just starting to get settled, get used to the conditions. And that was a lovely shot off the back foot from Pandya. Nicely caressed that through point. Just opened the face of the blade a little bit there. And that's 4 runs. Jung says, I think the bowler was a ringer. He knew what was what. Two balls left to Cameron Green's over. None for 12 from his 1.4 overs. As he's in again to Pandya. This one short. Pandya defends onto the offside for a dot ball. 1 ball left of the over. Cameron Green, can he get a wicket here? Finish off his over with a wicket if he can. Last ball now. He's into Pandya. This one full, and Pandya glides it behind square the offside for a single. Down to third man for 1. It's the end of the over. It's 4 for 64 after 15 for India. They're chasing 189 to win. And Australia, if only they had more runs to play with, then it would have been a different story. Well, that's all the time we've got for today. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. And it will be interesting to see what the conclusion of this match will be. Obviously, India, you would think, should win this game from here. But cricket's a funny game, and, many funny things have happened in cricket over the years. But India, they lost 4 early wickets. They should be able to win this game and go on to lead the series 1-0. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. A reminder, if you haven't done so yet, check out our historical series episode. That was looking back at the history of Lord's Cricket Ground and the MCC with Head of Heritage and Collections, Neil Robinson. In that discussion, Neil and I discussed the origins of Lord's Cricket Ground, the pavilion, the history of the Marylebone Cricket Club, the MCC Museum, and, of course, the Ashes. Make sure you watch those episodes. It was great to discuss all things history of cricket regarding Lords and the MCC with Neil. So if you haven't checked those episodes out, please do for our historical series. And also a reminder to stay tuned for our historical series episode, looking at the history of cricket with Andrew Hignell, who's from the Association of Cricket Statisticians and Historians. I will be speaking to him about the history of the game, and that should be coming out by our next historical series episode. So stay tuned for that, and make sure you check out the discussion I had with Neil about Lords and the MCC's history. So stay tuned for that episode, which is coming out shortly. Also, a reminder to like, share, comment, and subscribe. It really does help the podcast and support us. Once again, thank you, everyone, for helping us to reach 600 subscribers. It was good to tick off that milestone, and now the race and the road to 700 subscribers begins now. So if we can get a few more subscribers to get up to 700, it would be good to try and knock that off, and hopefully get to 1,000 if we can, and support all the good work that we do here on the podcast, providing our insights in the game of cricket through guests, through all things cricket, and hope people can enjoy that on the podcast. But it's been really good doing the podcast, and thanks everyone for the kind words of encouragement and support. It's been really helpful. So make sure you do subscribe and do all those good things, and hopefully we can get to 700 if we can. Obviously we're around about 98 away from that, so if we can knock over 100 more, that will be pretty good. But it's good to get 600 finally. Thank you, John. Yes, 600 subscribers. I never thought we would reach that milestone, but it took a while. We were in the nervous 590s for a bit, so it was very hard to rotate the strike and get singles, especially in the 590s. But to get to 600, finally tick that off was a proud milestone, and hopefully we can get to 700. So thank you, John, for the kind words there. And make sure you subscribe, everyone, because that really does help, and it does support the channel, and it really does help us immensely. Support what we're doing, what we're trying to achieve here. And that's just to have fun and talk cricket. That's why we're here. And that's the whole purpose of the podcast as well. So make sure you do that. Help us get to 700. The road, as I mentioned, begins now to get to 700 subscribers. And we'll be hoping to tick that milestone off sooner than later. But India, you would think will go on to win this first game of the series. And it should be an interesting series. And hopefully Australia can bounce back in the next game if they do go on to lose this match tonight. But it's been an interesting first game of the series. It's been great fun talking to all of you about it and about the game of cricket in general as well. And make sure you stay tuned for all the future episodes that we're doing, historical series episodes, of course, and some other cool episodes as well. We've got some cool things lined up for the WTC, which is the World Test Championship final. That's coming up soon. The Ashes are coming up. The 50-over World Cup's coming up as well. So we've got cool things lined up for that later on in the year. And hopefully you can subscribe and not miss out on all those fun episodes. But thanks, everyone. Once again, thank you so much for joining us, as always, on our watch-alongs and live streams. And before we go, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Podcast is available on Anchor, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you do all those good things, subscribe, and make sure you don't miss out on any episodes of the podcast. I think that's about it. If no one has any final thoughts in the comments, we can sign off. And we wish you a good day. So thanks, everyone, for joining us once again. And until next time, keep safe and bye for now.